So I was the team lead. The other E6 was the sniper. So they come into the intelligence shop one day. I don't know who they are, some random people. And they're like, hey, we've got a mission.
Yeah.
We go out on the mission. We fly out in a helicopter. We land out there.
Okay.
I'm walking along. I'm looking. All of a sudden, everything goes dark. Stepped right on an IED. So I wake up on the ground. I can see that this leg is gone, but it's all charred. And I can only see like this portion up to my knee. That's it.
Yeah.
My leg was still there, but there was nothing but bone from about 3/4 of my thigh down.
That's the only thing holding it.
And I wasn't bleeding. Like everything had been cauterized because it was all burnt.
Dude.
This arm was completely mangled. Going back and reading the medical records, I died on the helicopter, but I just kind of fell asleep. So turns out that I died again, and then I died again in the hospital. So I died 3 total times.
Triple death?
Yeah.
But you essentially swapped that spot with somebody else.
Yes. And that's exactly how I think about it. Like, and honestly, I look at it in a positive light because maybe they wouldn't have handled it as well, or maybe they had been standing a half a foot to the left. Because if I had been standing a half a foot to the left, I might not be here.
That's finding that golden nugget, right? You saved someone else's life.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Ghost, unofficially. I've even gotten somebody to try their first energy drink ever on this show.
Really?
It was a Ghost, and they liked it.
I think that's what my kid drinks is Ghost. That one, actually.
This one just came out.
The tea one?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we were in Memphis this weekend for baseball, and he grabbed one. He was like, Dad, this is fire.
This is it. This is it. This is the winner. I'm telling you, yeah, like the last few they come out with, the grape's my favorite. The Welch's grape.
I pretty much like grape anything.
Oh, dude. Well, if you ever have one, the Welch's grape Ghost is insanely good.
Okay.
Yeah. So good. You ready to roll, man?
Let's go.
We're going to dive into it.
All right.
What is up, everybody? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit Podcast. What we do on this podcast is bringing guests from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, to share their journey and everything along the way that led them to where they're at today. We're here to make an impact, and that is what we do. So if that is for you, like, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And if that is not for you, I don't know what your problem is, but it's time to jump on board today. Thank you. But without further ado, I would love to introduce this evening's guest, Mr. Chris Payne.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, so glad to have you. Quick connection, reflection. I did not mean to rhyme that. Landon.
Yeah.
Our mutual, I guess, I don't know if y'all were like friends, but
he's a hell of a barber.
He's a hell of a barber. But Landon, shout out to you, brother. Landon's been my barber for freaking almost 10 years now. And yeah, he was like, I got a guy for you. And he saw you at the gym and connected it. And here you are, man.
He's always in there working hard, making me work harder.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to dive into your journey. You ready for it?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay. First time, right?
Yeah, first time.
Yeah, so tell us what it is that you do every day.
Okay, so I'm a dad. I've been married almost 20 years.
Okay.
Got 2 kids living home, 22 and 17.
Nice.
I'm a physical therapist assistant, so I do home health physical therapy. So on a daily basis, get up 4:30, spend my hour of alone time that I can get in the morning before anybody wakes up.
Yeah.
Get ready, head to the gym, spend an hour and a half or so at the gym, go start seeing patients all day long, come home, dad work, husband work, go to sleep.
There you
rinse
go.
and repeat.
Hell yeah. When you when you got time for the gym?
So I go in the mornings, generally get there around 7 o'clock, leave around 9 o'clock, something like that.
There's always time, man.
Yeah.
You just got to make it. Yeah.
So, and I didn't used to be able to, when I first started physical therapy, I was inpatient physical therapy and I could not find time for it.
Yeah.
I would have had to have gotten up at like 2 a.m. to try to get to the gym. So I changed the profession when home health gave me more schedule flexibility. And so now I can do it because it's important to me.
Oh yeah.
You know, as an amputee, especially, you know, like I have to be up and walking around and physically capable of treating my patients.
Or you lock up.
Yeah.
It sounds like you just got a, nice life, man. You're doing what you do. You're a family man. That's a beautiful thing. Nice, man. Well, yeah. Now, take it back. We're going to reel it back a little bit. We're going to go to the early days, the young days of Chris Payne.
All right.
Where are you from? Talk about your childhood a little bit, your family life, and maybe some significant, impactful moments of your life that maybe carry forward to today and whatnot.
Okay. So I grew up in Mount Juliet, kind of. So when I was really little, like when I was born, my mom and dad were married. We lived in Smyrna.
Okay.
So dad was an alcoholic, like crazy alcoholic, like would go to the bar, bring girls home and sleep on the couch with them because he was too drunk to realize his wife lived there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like wild, right? So they divorced when I'm 2. I don't remember a lot from there. The things I do remember weren't great.
They divorced when?
When I was 2.
Oh, okay.
So, you have a couple of little bitty memories, you can remember.
The childhood trauma, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So then we move in with my grandmother for a couple of years. We live in Hermitage.
Okay.
She meets my stepdad, who she went to school with. I guess they had liked each other back then. They meet, rekindle their love type of thing.
Yeah.
So they get married. We moved to Mount Juliet. And we lived with him forever. They're still together now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it was me, my brother. I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me, and then he had 2 kids. He's got a son and a daughter. Okay. And then they had a half sister. So it was the 5 of us that kind of grew up in this 3-bedroom house in Mount Juliet. We were very much raised 90s style, which meant the parents didn't pay any attention to you unless you got in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah. That was kind of the rule in the house is as long as you don't bring the attention to yourself from outside of the home, you can go kind of do whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
So I'm being the oldest, so I kind of did exactly what I wanted to do.
How old are you?
I'm 44.
44. Okay.
Yeah. So did kind of what I wanted to do. And like growing up, I didn't think it was a bad thing. As I've gotten older, I realized that it put a lot of stress on me, like a lot of strain, a lot of like being neglected almost as a child.
Yeah.
Like you go to your mom and you're like, hey, stepdad being an asshole or whatever, and she's like, okay.
Yeah. That's what he's supposed to do. Yeah. Yeah. That sucks, man.
Like he would tell me like, hey, I've got to be hard on you to get your dad out of you. But like, I was 2, like how much of him is in me. I didn't even enjoy going over there most of the time because when we would go over on the weekends, he would take us out and go hunting, which meant he would sit us down in the woods and he'd go check his weed plants in the woods.
Oh, yeah. Good God.
Yeah. He'd say, I'm going to go check my tomato plants.
Yeah. Watch out for the bucks.
Yeah, exactly. So, he'd give me a bow and arrow and sit me down in the woods and I'd sit there for 4 hours.
Yeah. You see him rummaging around. You're like, I see no damn tomato plants over there. What is going on?
Yeah. So that was kind of life growing up. You had to figure it out all on your own.
Interesting.
The support wasn't ever really there.
Yeah.
Like I'd go to stepdad and say, hey, help me with math or whatever. And he'd say, I'll show you once. That's all you get. You better remember it.
Yeah.
He worked early morning. So he'd lock the doors, like come home, go to sleep, lock the door. We were outside.
Yeah.
Don't turn the hose on. It's loud.
I could hear that thing. It's so crazy you bring that up. Cause parenting something, obviously, I have a almost 2.5-year-old daughter. And so it's something I've been able to analyze cause I'm 35 now. And, I believe in like being hard on your kids to a degree, but someone commented on something I posted. I don't know, it was on TikTok. I had all these comments and it was like, but you gotta be hard on them. Parents want to be friends with their kids. And like, I want my daughter to trust me. And yeah, that you build a friendship and you earn their trust, but that's being loving, that's connecting with them as much as you possibly can. Be hard on them when you need to be, but life's going to be hard. Like, why should you like emphasize that more? Like they're going to have to face stuff regardless and you just be there for them through it.
Well, there's a difference between being hard and giving them tough love.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just being generally hard on a kid for no reason is different than, standing up for your values and teaching a kid that like, hey, I know your feelings are hurt, but this is what's right.
Yes.
And I know that this is going to suck right now, but this is what's right. And this is what I'm trying to teach you are the values I want you to have for the rest of your life.
Yeah. You help like guide them, not like lay down the law all the time.
Right. And then that's hard because kids aren't always going to understand. They don't get it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you're going to hurt their feelings and you're going to argue with them and you're going to disagree.
Yeah.
Because they're young humans. That's what I tell young parents all the time is like, you can only guide a kid so much because they have their own personality.
Exactly. Well, like my daughter, I mean, she's 2, she throws a fit, she's losing it. What is it going to do if I get mad at her?
Right.
She doesn't understand why I'm mad. Now she's more mad and she's even more frustrated. Like, I just try to talk to her very calm and explain things because it's getting in there.
Yeah.
It just takes patience on the parents' end. You know what I'm saying? It's like, be patient for them. They're like developing.
And it's funny too, because they don't always get that either. My oldest son tells me all the time, he's like, I hate that you preach all the time.
I know they take it as a lecture.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not trying to preach. I'm trying to instill values and teach you something. And like, I'm trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
But what you're saying back is nothing. So it comes across as preaching.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. But one day they'll reflect and they'll appreciate it. You know, and as they go on, they'll reflect on certain things and be like, okay.
He'll get it. He'll get it sometimes. Like every now and again, he'll say, I did listen. And I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah, right. That's funny. We'll see how it is. My daughter, I can tell you, she has got a very strong will.
Yeah.
But I love that. I want her to. So I'm trying to like embrace that while also trying to like not let her overstep with me, but she's 2, so we'll get there.
That's right.
We'll tackle it when it comes. But back to your story. So obviously that was pretty tough for you. It affected you. I'm sure it's affected you until today, and you still work through it. And that's the thing. I think the lessons you teach or the way you teach things early on, I don't think people realize how much just like being called one thing can affect your entire life. I talked to a lady and she realized her whole holdback from life is her mom always said she was the difficult one.
Yeah.
That affected her forever because it just like planted that seed that she always thought she was difficult. Like, it's crazy how much power the words you say have, especially on your kids.
Well, and in my particular case, it was the lack of words for the most part. So it taught me that like, you don't get help from people. You got to figure it out by yourself. And if you go and ask somebody, they're just going to let you down generally. So all of my life, I've just kind of spent trying to figure everything out, which then of course makes you overthink, and oftentimes you guess wrong.
Bro, I feel you there. Yes.
You get that overthinker mentality and you're always trying to figure out like, why does this person not like me? What am I doing wrong here? Like, what happened over there? Like, that made this happen that way. And it's always your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. And obviously accountability and stuff are very important, but you don't have to take blame for everything.
Right.
And I think it's, even just in the past year, I'm finally learning how to ask for help.
Yeah.
And it's tough to do for some of us.
That's what's caused like the biggest problem in my marriage is that lack of communication, because it was always, like she'd say something and I would shut down like, oh, it must be my fault. Like I'm wrong, and when you always think that you're wrong, you discount everybody's feelings. Right.
Yeah.
So, but growing up that way, that's all I knew. There was no feelings. There was no right or wrong. I was immediately wrong. Like there was no other option.
Well, what's beautiful is you have that awareness now. You're self-aware that is an issue. Now it's just confronting it, and I don't know how you're going about that, but yeah, it takes time.
Communication.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we are kind of confronting it together. I spent a lot of time talking to her about things. It drives her crazy because I'm talking to her about things that I'm feeling with her, like I should be talking to a random person.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, I feel this. Help me process it.
And I think it's more difficult when you do it years into the marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's how my wife and I started our marriage, with clear communication.
Yeah.
And I talked about it in the episode with her, like such a blessing. But we also met, she was 29, I was 33 or whatever, 5 years older. So 32. I don't know, something like that. But anyways, so we met like after our 20s, and we just are blessed to be able to do that. But when you meet, young, I don't know when y'all met.
She was just turned 18 and I was 20.
See, so you're trying to figure out who the hell you are too.
Right.
So the communication's going to be off,
Yep.
So it's something you got to learn, but you're doing it. So,
well, and then like our situation. So to fast forward a little, so I get to high school. I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm making my way through. I'm an AB student. Like I'm not a bad student, but I'm definitely kind of a wallflower. I stick to myself, do my own thing. I've got a very small friend group. 11th grade, I'm sitting in class. Recruiter comes in, or maybe it was early 12th grade. Recruiter comes into the class. I'd never even considered military before. Never thought about it.
Yeah.
Guy comes in and he's like, hey, infantry's cool. Like shows the slideshow, the whole deal with the painted green berets and all
like,
the nonsense.
Yes.
And I'm like, that could be fun, right?
Yeah.
Like give me some college money. So I go into delayed entry program. I didn't even ask my parents. I was just like, hey, I'm going to go do this. Went infantry, delayed entry program, left for the Army, was happy.
Did they react at all? Or were they just like,
Oh, my mom wasn't happy about it at all.
oh yeah, of course.
No, I mean, mom wasn't happy. Stepdad was, whatever.
Yeah.
So mom was not happy, at the time though, it was 99. So there was nothing going on. Like Kosovo was done. So there was no wars on the horizon. So, I mean, at least it was safe, or so we thought.
Yeah. So we thought, yeah, man. Well, if you wanted to dive into that, going into the military and that journey, right? Is there anything else you want to touch on from the childhood aspect?
No, I mean, childhood was neither good or bad. It was just kind of neglectful and empty, so
Yeah.
it caused a lot of issues later, but at the time it wasn't anything bad.
We'll circle back around to that,
Yeah.
as we get further into it. So yeah, take us back to the time you joined the military and obviously what happened right after.
Yeah, so going to the military, I decided I wanted to be an infantry guy. I was like, if I'm going to go into the infantry or to the Army, I'm going to do something that's going to be cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go be a cook or, something that like I have to, be like, oh, I'm a cook, like, no, I wanted to be the badass, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I go in, I sign up to be an infantry guy, I go to Fort Benning. It was different, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was ever like, it sucked, like doing all the physical things because I wasn't an athlete. Like I tried to be an athlete when I was younger, but I got a D. Stepdad made me quit, so I didn't get to do any athletic stuff. So here I am, no athlete at all. Like my first 2 mile time was a 20-minute and 30-second 2 mile.
Hey, man.
I could probably do that now as an amputee.
Oh God.
It was bad, right?
Hey, yeah.
Like it was really, really bad. But by the time I got out, I was running a 13-minute 2 mile.
Yeah.
Much
Better.
Yeah, much better. So go through basic training at Fort Benning. That was cool. Get Fort Stewart, Georgia. That was my first duty station. So not far from home, like 6.5 hours from Nashville.
Okay.
So not super bad, right?
Yeah.
Go down there. Wasn't a great soldier. Not at all. Like I just kind of wanted to party and drink and like be away from home.
That's like every freaking, that was most of my career.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's literally all I did for 2 years while I was there. So I met my wife at this time. So she is from Billings, Montana.
Okay.
She was just turned 18, was about to graduate high school. Her and her friend knew a guy that was stationed at Fort Stewart. So they come down for him for their battalion ball, right?
Okay.
So they're down there. They're hanging out at the mall. Me and my friends are hanging out at the mall. I meet her there. We hit it off, like hung out the rest of the weekend. It was really cool, right?
Heck yeah.
So she goes back to Montana. I hang out in Georgia for a while. She flies me up there. She says, hey, you want to come up to Billings? And I was like, dude, I'm broke. I'm a private. What do you want?
Yeah. Hey, I got to save up. Yeah.
Well, no, she's like, hey, my friend's mom works for an airline. I'll fly you up. So
Sweet.
Flies me up there. Turns out she gets pregnant. Then I come down on orders for Korea.
Yeah. Good God. Life happening fast for your
Right.
young self.
So here I am. I'm like, got a girl that I don't know. She's about to have a baby. I'm going to a different country for a year.
Oh, God.
It's yeah. Like how much stress can you put on a 19-year-old kid, right?
It's common.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a lot of it. Yeah.
So go to Korea, really fun. Like Korea was great. I love being over there in a different country, experiencing that kind of the different culture things, the different food, watching people. It was great.
Like a year-long bachelor party.
It really was.
Yeah.
And also for me, because I was about to have a kid, it was the stress-free side of it. Like my wife's back here, not my wife, she's my girlfriend at the time. And she's back here struggling, trying to figure out how to be a mom. And, like I'm over here going, I'm not a dad yet, So
Shoot.
it was looking back, that's really bad. But at the time,
You were young, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
so go through the year, we decide while we're there that like she needs to move back to Nashville because I had a better family situation than she did. So her family situation wasn't great. Mom was abusive, the whole deal, like just wasn't great. So she goes to live with her dad for a little bit, who lived in Oklahoma at the time while I was kind of in Korea and getting through. She has our son and then moves to Nashville
Okay.
before I was even home. So here's this girl that nobody knows, like moves into my parents' house, never leaves the bedroom.
I'm just putting myself in the vicinity of it all. If I was a fly on the wall, man.
Dude, it was, yeah. So she literally would never leave the bedroom until everybody was asleep. She was so afraid of everybody, you know, because like my family growing up was really loud. There was always people around. They would drink and party and whatever.
Yeah.
Her family was not that way. You know, like her mom was really strict, like 2-minute shower type, you know, mom, like the whole deal, controlled every aspect of life. It was quiet, no loud noises, you know, the whole deal. So
Total different shot. It's shocking.
yeah,
God.
complete culture shock for her.
Yeah.
And on top of that, she's got a brand new baby with a guy that she doesn't know and his family, who now is crazy, according to her.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude. Oh, poor her.
Yeah, there's a theme of that along this whole story.
Yeah, I see.
So I get home from Korea. I re-enlisted, was going to go for Fort Campbell.
So you get home and she's waiting there with your son.
Yeah. I mean, seriously.
I want to know what that moment was like for you.
So this time coming home was it was really weird. Like, she's like, here's your kid. And I'm like,
were you checking your pulse and stuff on the flight? You're probably like nervous as hell.
Honestly, I wasn't until I saw him. When I saw him, it was like, okay, like this is real. Like this is now my life.
Dad.
Yeah. Like up to that point, like you don't know what that feels like.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, like I'd had a kid. He was almost 6 months old, but I'd never seen him. I didn't want to come home from Korea for the birth and see him and then have to go back.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, like that would have murdered me the entire time, and I knew it.
Yeah, I know trust me, the feeling when you know, when your wife's carrying is different, but the feeling when you see them for the first time.
Yeah.
And you hold them, it's like, yeah.
And then I would have been stuck in Korea for another 6 months, like not being able to do anything, no holding him, no loving him, no touching him, no nothing.
That would have sucked. Yeah.
So I see him for the first time, and it's like my life was different, but not like it was for you whenever you're 30.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, when you're still 21 years old and you see your kid the first time, it's different, but it's not the same as seeing the kid being born.
Yeah.
You know, you almost get the stepdad vibes.
Yeah.
And my wife and I have talked about that since then, that like, that's probably been some of the issue with my son and I, you know, is that I wasn't there when he was born and I missed that first time, that little bit.
An interaction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
And so it's definitely always like from the beginning, like caused kind of an emotional disconnect.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to reflect on that. Yeah. Because you know, those beginning touches and everything. I mean, that's impactful.
Yeah.
It was like when I don't know, when I held her, I like illuminated.
Yeah.
I could feel my soul just on fire, you know? And it's like, that's a different experience. And obviously when you saw him, you loved him as your son.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not going to speak for you. I can imagine it's a lot different though, man.
You get the feeling, but it's not that same level of kind of like brand new birth, like watching your wife or, you know, at that time, my girlfriend go through the act of giving birth, you know, and watching it all happen and going through the emotions and then the relief of it. Yeah. I think is part of it when you're there.
Oh, 100%.
You know, and so that adds to that kind of deep connection because you experienced all of it with them.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You know, and I missed that portion of it.
Interesting. Damn. And layered with the fact, you know, that you really didn't, from your childhood, you didn't know how to connect anyways.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah. Dang. That's pretty crazy. So moving forward from that, we're going to circle back around a lot of these themes.
Yeah.
So moving forward from that, you know, you obviously, so here you are, you're a dad, you re-enlisted. And what year was this?
So this would have been 2003.
And then where did you go next?
So went to Fort Campbell. So when I re-enlisted for Campbell on purpose because I knew my family was in Nashville and it was the closest base I could get to.
Okay. Did y'all decide to get hitched?
No.
Quick?
So we decided to live together. So we were basically going to parent together, live together, kind of date, if you will.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you got to think at this point we had known each other for a year or more, but we had never actually dated.
Yeah.
You know, like here we are, like we've had maybe a total of less than 12 days in person together because I saw her for like 3 or 4 days before I went to Korea as well. I went to her dad's in Oklahoma and visited.
Yeah.
So less than 12 days total. We have a kid together.
Yeah, man.
So here we are, like literally having to date while having a kid.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That's intense.
On top of that, I'm in the military, and you know what it's like when you're in the military. You're hardly ever at home.
Yeah.
You know, especially being an infantry guy, you're training all the time. You're always doing stuff. And when you are at home, you're exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of goes back to like, and you're also created to be that machine, you know, like every guy I've talked to that's, been, especially that have been deployed and in careers like that in the military, they're like, dude, like being deployed's easy. It's the mission and the men.
Yeah.
That's like the common theme I hear, so coming home to like being a dad and a husband and stuff, like, it's like, oh, and that's where there's a lot of tough things to face, but that's what they want you to be.
Right.
They don't really train you how to be a family man.
Nope. Nobody does.
Yeah, exactly. So you're trying to figure all this out and you're just clueless. All you know is that you're doing your job and you got a kid and a girlfriend and life can be hard.
And in the meantime, you're trying to fit all of this in. You're trying to figure out, like, how am I a dad?
Mm-hmm.
How am I a boyfriend? Like, how do I do all of these things in the limited time that I have?
That's interesting.
And then on top of that, like, part of you as a young guy, like, you're like, I don't want to do this. Like, I would much rather just like come home and go to sleep and watch some TV and whatever. Like, I'm burnt out. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So you're fighting your own like youthful inclinations on top of, all of the inclinations that are fighting the opposite direction. Like, oh, now I've got to be a good dad. Now I've got to be a good boyfriend. Now I've got to be a good soldier. And so like, you're always at battle with yourself. It seemed like when I was young. And so that's exhausting.
When did y'all decide to actually tie the knot, and when did you finally get deployed?
So it was close to the same amount of time. So deployments are coming up. This would have been like once Iraqi war started, right?
Yeah.
So I missed the initial invasion because I was in Korea. I want to say it was 2002, right? So they are invading Iraq. I get back in 2003, go to Fort Campbell, and they're still there. And they said, hey, do you want to go? I was like, sure. But they were like, hey, you're a newly promoted E5. We need you here. Like, we're sending soldiers out, whatever, right? So I stay. We date the whole time. The second round of deployments is coming up. Second round of deployments are coming around. So we're going out to NTC, National Training Center in California, right? So that's where they send you to go for a month so we can train before we go to Iraq. It's supposed to kind of acclimate you to the heat, that type of thing, desert warfare, the whole deal. So we go through the whole training. We've been there a month. We're sitting in the tents on the way back, and I missed her. Never missed anybody. We talked about this already. Not being able to emotionally connect to people. It's weird when you start to feel things. I'm laying there on this cot and I'm thinking about her and I'm like,
what is happening?
What the hell is this?
Yeah.
Right. So I called her on the phone. Like, one of the guys had a cell phone. I called her and I'm like, hey, I think we should get married.
You're like, I missed you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told her that.
Felt weird saying it, I bet.
Well, and it's funny because I had told her before, like, and I'm going to sound like a huge asshole, but I had told her, like, we're not going to get married. Yeah. And it was because, it's funny, I just came to this realization this last week and I told her, I said, the reason I think I always told you that was because of watching my mom and stepdad being married. I never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what marriage was. I didn't want that at all.
Bad experience, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed awful to me. Like, she stayed with him, but she was miserable forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I told her, I was like, I missed you. I think we should get married. She thought I was messing with her. Like, she really did. She was like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. So when she got off the phone, she called my mom and she was like, is he effing with me? like, is he serious? Like, would he do that to me? So we get back, we decide that we're going to get married before I deploy.
Yeah.
So I want to say that this would have been August, maybe it was July, something like that. And we're going to deploy in September. So we get a little thing together. We get married at the church where my grandmother went to church, that type of thing, in the little chapel. It wasn't a big wedding. It was just kind of us and a couple of friends and family get married. And then I deploy for my first time over to Iraq.
Okay. And what year was this?
This would have been 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
Okay. How long were you there?
So I was there for a year. The area that we went to is called the Sunni Triangle. The town we went to is called Yusufia, southwest of Baghdad.
Okay.
So at the time, it was one of, if not the worst areas in all of Iraq.
What was it like? I guess newly married, you're like feeling feelings, obviously I'm assume that like intensified with your child too. What was that like leaving them now that you're feeling this, feeling a different way?
Well, it's funny because it was all just terrifying, like all of it. So when I was deploying for that first time, a lot of the guys that had gone were already combat vets. Like, they had all already gone over. And at this point, I'm at E6, I'm a squad leader. So I'm now leading men into combat. And some of them have been, and I haven't. On top of that, I'm newly married. I've got a kid. I have no idea how to process that. Like, I don't know that I ever actually did. I don't know that I was even emotionally capable of processing what I was doing at the time.
Then you're going to war.
Yeah. And that I'm leaving my wife and my kid back at home to go do something that I could die doing.
That's
I don't know that I ever emotionally processed that like that at all.
really.
Yeah, I don't know that I was capable. And I don't know that I could have done what we did had I processed it that way.
Yeah. Like you were able to go there and actually do your job.
Right.
Absent of processing that. Had you done it, it would have been a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
And so that, you know, we, like you just talked about before, guys talk about deployments were the easy part, right? Deployments were the easy part because everything's shut off.
Yeah.
You know, like you're just there doing what you're trained to do.
Of course.
So the emotional parts are shut off, all except for the times when you get the call back home or you get to talk to your wife or your kid, which for me was frustrating because where we were, we only had one phone and one computer for 120 guys. And the phone had a 5 or 10 second delay. So my kid was like 3. So it was impossible to talk to him anyway. So it was eternally frustrating when you would call, you'd go, hello? Oh, hello?
Yeah. Oh, God.
You know, and so that's the way the phone conversation went every time. So if you can
Yeah.
imagine trying to talk to your 2-year-old daughter that way,
Oh, God.
where you're like, hello, and then they're like, hello, 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 and then all of a sudden it comes back through and they're done with the conversation because they're frustrated and moved on.
Yeah. I just get delayed. Daddy.
Yes.
Daddy.
Yes.
I'd be like, damn it, man.
Yeah, and then mom's on the phone and they're like, oh, you know, he left the phone. He was tired of the conversation.
Yeah. It's almost like you're not even talking to them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because of that disconnect in that time.
Yeah, so there was never an opportunity for that. So it was the first probably 7 months, 6 or 7 months, because at one point halfway through, our fob burnt down. So they eventually brought us computers and phones. Like somehow they found them later, but not at the beginning.
They're like, oh, I've only been using this one. We got like a whole stockpile.
Yeah, like we feel bad now, so you can have all of these computers. They even built us an internet lab.
Oh, so it worked out with the burn down.
Right.
Yeah, man. So what was that experience like overall though? Do you remember some vivid stuff? I mean, was it pretty intense?
Oh yeah, the first time was really, really intense. So
you want to talk about it?
yeah.
Okay.
So the area that we went to, like I told you, it was really bad. So we went there with one company of guys. And so just to kind of skip ahead, when we got replaced by a battalion.
Okay.
So one company versus 5.
Yeah.
That's how bad the area was, right? We literally couldn't hold this area.
Yeah.
It was so bad, like that we would end up with like 6 guys on a checkpoint and they would say, hey, go run a mission. And we'd take like 3 dudes.
Damn.
You know, it was awful. It was really, really, really bad. Like everybody got, I don't even know how the words, like I don't know what words to use, but it was bad enough that a book ended up getting written about our company called Black Hearts by Jim Frederick.
Damn.
I don't know if you remember in 2005 or 2006, there was rape and murder of a family. That was my unit.
Oh my God.
So there was one squad of our guys that was sitting there. Their squad leader had going home on R&R, right? So they left a newly promoted E5 in charge. And it was him and a bunch of dudes. Somehow they'd gotten some alcohol or something from some Iraqis and got all drunk and went nuts out there. And it was crazy. But the entire deployment kind of led up to that. So we had 120 dudes. We could not function. We could not safely perform any of the missions. Like we weren't supposed to take one vehicle anywhere. You're supposed to have 2.
Yeah.
We couldn't even fill up one.
Good God.
Like we would often send 3 guys in a vehicle somewhere and just hope.
You're like, is the country even thinking about us right now? Like, do they even remember we're here?
No.
It probably almost felt like y'all were abandoned.
Well, no, it's exactly what it felt like. And it wasn't by the country. It was by our leadership.
Yeah. By the leadership.
So we would tell our company and then the company would tell battalion and so forth. And we would be like, hey, we have nothing. We took over a house at one point that had nothing behind us. Like we had no, you remember, like you ever seen the big HESCO barriers that you fill with dirt?
Yeah.
You know, like those. We had none of those. We had no concertina wire. We had nothing. We were literally just sleeping in a house with an open back. And that was terrifying every night. Like you'd go to sleep and just be like, well, I hope the Iraqis don't see this.
God almighty, dude.
So, and that would happen every single night. So, and we had kind of 3 areas that we would go. We had a place called the JS Bridge. It was a large bridge that went over the Euphrates River, and we had a water treatment plant that we took over. So we would have one platoon that would stay there. We'd have another platoon that covered the roads that we would drive on. We had checkpoints along the roads. And every morning and every night we would go along the roads and make sure there was no IED so we could drive the vehicles.
Yeah.
And then you would have one platoon at the company area that would kind of perform company missions. You know, like if you had to go back to battalion or, you know, whatever the company people needed, they would do that.
Okay.
And we would rotate the checkpoint missions and the FOB missions every week. And then we would rotate the bridge every month. So at the bridge, we had to get stuff helicoptered in. Like we couldn't even drive supplies down there. So they would helicopter in your meat and your supplies, and you would grill out every night. You did not have a shower. We had like a bag that had a black side and a white side. You put the black side up to heat up the water. So we had nothing. We had no tools. Like at one point we were building fighting positions using Leatherman tools.
It's like, well, yeah, you're almost like, what are we even doing?
Yeah. So like we ended up finding out that we could run electricity off a generator. So we went into town and bought lights and electrical wire from the Iraqis and came back. And me and my buddy, who had no idea how to run electrical wire at all, ran these lights off of a generator so that we could have some lights.
Yeah, it's not like you had YouTube.
No, we had nothing.
Damn, man. That's wow. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
What, and not to harp on this, though, you said there was a rape and murder. Was that from I don't remember that specifically.
So it was in 2000, early 2006 was when it happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the guys went to this house, and I don't even want to go into all the details.
Yeah, I don't have to.
The bad stuff happened, and then like we went, everybody checked it out. Like they initially thought that maybe it was the insurgents or something, and then it turns out that somebody knew about it, and somebody like turned them in. Like one of our guys turned in the other guys.
It's so crazy that, like, I don't know, man, like people are capable of that, one, and two, but thinking of the circumstances, it's like it drove these dudes nuts.
That was the idea. Yeah. And then as a leader,
like it almost made him psychotic.
Well, and then as a leader in the company, right? Like you immediately are like, well, what did I do wrong?
Oh man.
You know, like what could I have done differently? You know, like I should have been better. And all of us were that way. Like none of the leadership even talks anymore because all of us, you know, have our own guilt and our own shame and our own whatever. And everybody thinks everybody's pointing fingers, and it was awful.
How do you look at that now?
I wish that I could have a conversation maybe and then like figure it all out, but I don't know that there's anything to salvage, you know?
Yeah. You were in it, so you were in a way kind of going crazy too.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you're just camping out, trying to survive.
That's exactly what it was. I had shut off completely emotionally. I had none. Like the first guys that died was Travis Nelson and Kasika. There was a guy that used to come up to the checkpoint. He'd come up there every day. So every single day he'd walk up there, they'd check him out. He'd go wherever he went, right? Yeah. And this happened for weeks. This was in the first month. So this is what I think it was December when this happened. So we got there in September. Like every day he would come up there. One day he walked up with a pistol. They didn't check him out. Like at that point he had done it so often that they trusted him. Dude pulled out a pistol, shot both of them in the head.
Oh my God.
And when that one happened, it tore me down.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that I had ever cried like that before in my life. And I don't know that I've cried like that since.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. Like I don't even remember the people that I hugged. Because like when we would have a funeral, like when something like that would happen, when we'd get some free time, we'd have a funeral. You know, and they'd have the boots and the rifles up front with their picture, and they'd play taps and the whole deal. And like, I still can't listen to taps.
Yeah. I mean, rightfully so. Man, that's heavy shit, dude.
Yeah.
What an insane experience. I mean, well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's pretty vulnerable because it's like I don't know what you would call that kind of memory.
I don't know that it's a traumatic memory. It's just sad.
It's sad.
You know, like the whole experience is sad, and I don't beat myself up about it so much anymore. Like it's not one of those like, do I feel like I could have saved the guys? You know, that type of thing. Like that stuff happens in wars. Yeah. You know, like we lost 8 guys, and I don't hold myself responsible for any of them.
Yeah. I mean, which is good because I know a lot of people do.
When some guys that were there at that checkpoint might have.
Yeah.
You know, and they might still. and that's awful. And those are the types of things that like, I wish that I could do something about, but I can't.
Are you still connected to any of those guys?
No. I don't know that any of them talk really. I'd still talk to, so the guy that turned everybody in, I'll talk to him sometimes.
Okay.
We were pretty close for a while. And we'll talk on and off, but he's gotten so busy here lately and I've gotten so busy, we just don't talk that much.
Well, I can imagine, given that what it was and how sad it was, you almost kind of want to disconnect from all of it.
Yeah.
The people.
I think all of us do.
Yeah. Just like almost turn it off.
Yes.
What resulted in you coming home?
So by the time that we came home, we were all done. So we finished up the deployment because what really was the last thing. So after the rape murder, we had 3 guys down at a checkpoint. Well, 2 of the 3 got kidnapped. 1 was killed on the spot. The 2 that got kidnapped were burned and beheaded. So when that happened, they kind of like took us all off of our spots. They moved us up to battalion. We basically pulled guard for like the last month and a half of the deployment or something like that. We come back home and they broke up our platoon. So they blamed all of the leadership, meaning like my leadership blamed us. So everybody in the company got like bronze stars with valor. They didn't approve ours.
Yeah. The ones that failed to get y'all the resources and the help y'all needed.
Right. So then my company got kind of broken up completely. They sent all of the leaders everywhere. So I was in first, the 5 was second, and then they disbanded us. They sent me to interview for a counter IED job. So this was a brand new job in the Army. So it had never been done before. And there was a captain at the 101st that was trying to put together this unit that was going to teach IEDs. They were going to learn everything about IEDs, how they were put together, how they were implemented. And then they were going to try to teach the units when they were going to deploy the second time, like, how do you defend against that? How do you react to it? How do you identify it? Like all of those things. Yeah. So he interviewed a bunch of infantry guys, some truck drivers, and all like people who experience a lot of IEDs. Mm-hmm. And he put together this unit, and that's where I went to after the deployment.
Okay. So you basically got back and went straight into that training.
Right.
Before you get to that, I want to know, I guess, how did it make you feel that your leadership kind of did that to you?
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. Like, I actually ran into my battalion commander after I got hurt at Walter Reed because he didn't end up doing very well for himself either. He ended up becoming the rear D commander, which I found out later as an officer is kind of a death thing. Like, you're not going anywhere in your career from that point forward, right?
Okay, yeah.
So like he was a colonel at that point, but he was never going to get promoted again. So I ran into him at a wreath laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, like after I got hurt, and I didn't even shake his hand. Like I wouldn't even look at him because I had an interaction with him after our guys got kidnapped. So the day our guys searched all night long. Like I was running the radio, like I'm controlling air, ground, the whole deal, right? So I'm sitting in my room up against my bed, and he walks in and he goes, "Hey, what do you need?" I said, "We need guys." And he was like, "Well, I was just talking to your commander, and you have bodies, you just haven't been using them." I said, "Well, can you tell me where they've been? Because I've been here for 8 months and haven't seen them." And at this point, the sergeant major came in and chewed me up wall one side and down the other one because I wasn't standing at attention talking to my battalion commander. Yeah. In a war zone after my buddies just got beheaded and burned. So tells you a lot about the leadership.
Good God. And I'm not all of them are like that, but
no. It was just those 2 specifically.
Yeah.
Because
and that sucks, man.
Most of the other leadership that I knew was really, really, really good. As a matter of fact, the battalion commander that wanted to stay when we were going to deploy, the one that had deployed with them the first time, was going to pass up, basically like ruin his career because you don't stay and deploy again. And this guy was like, "No, I want to go." Like he was willing to do it, and he was amazing. And they ended up moving him to IG. Yeah. And he was an excellent leader, and most leaders were. Yeah.
But sometimes you got some.
This guy just wasn't.
And those were not the circumstances to have shitty leadership.
No, it wasn't.
And, how do you live yourself failing people like that? Knowing that they're that's a whole different thing. Yeah. But damn, man. Well, before you go into the training for the job, what was it like coming home to your family?
Dude, it was amazing. So you remember I told you I didn't really remember that first time. Yeah. Well, I remember this one. Okay. So I remember getting off the airplane at the hangar. I remember looking out and trying to find, because you can kind of see the families. I'm trying to find my wife. I'm trying to find my kid. She runs over. She's wearing a dress. She don't even care. She jumps up, arms and legs around me, like the whole deal. And he's sitting up on my shoulders. And dude, it was probably the biggest relief I'd ever felt in my life at that point.
Yeah.
Just I'm okay. Like I made it.
What a powerful feeling.
Full, like I think that was the first time I ever felt full.
Oh, just that amount of love.
Yes. Yes. Like I felt safe and full and happy.
Just imagine, had you not met her and had that little boy, you might have come home to that.
Yeah. Well, had I not met her and had that little boy, I wouldn't have been there at all. I would have gotten out, probably gone to school, or something like that. Or like I always dreamed of going to Germany.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of the one place I wanted to go if I stayed in the Army, was I wanted to go to Germany and tour Europe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows where or how it would have went or how it would have developed later.
Yeah.
Because really the catalyst to all of my change has been my family.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good catalyst. It's good change, Yeah, man. That's pretty amazing. Well, I'm glad you got to come home to them, man. That's a good reunion. So going forward to training the new job and, getting deployed with that.
Yeah. So I meet with this captain. I'm sitting down across the table from me and he's like, "Why do you want this job?" I was like, "I don't." I was like,
Where they put me?
I said, "They sent me here to interview for this job, so I'm here." And so he told me later on, he was like, "I hired you immediately in my brain." He was like, "I knew I wanted you." So we had no idea what to do with this unit. It had never been done before. This captain, he's a little nuts. Like the guy, he's out there. Like the guy, there's not even a box for him to think out of.
Really?
Yeah, he's just that kind of guy.
Yeah.
So we come up with this entire training curriculum. Like we go to all of these different seminars. We get FBI agents in. Like we literally anybody that can teach us about bombs and how to make bombs and how to do all of this stuff. They're teaching us all this stuff, right? So then we're developing training courses. Like, okay, how do we put units? Like, how do we drive them down a road and then set off fake IEDs and see how they react? So we're going to different units around the Army that are trying to do the same things. And we're like, okay, what are you guys doing? Like what kind of materials are you using to set these fake IEDs off? Like this kind of stuff. So we developed this whole thing and then we're training units, where the units are coming through. We're giving them classes on PowerPoints. We're doing all this stuff. We're learning at the same time. It was actually really kind of interesting. That was one of my favorite parts of the Army, was trying to figure this out, because it wasn't like the real Army. We didn't answer to anybody. We didn't go to PT every day. Like we exercised on our own. We trained on our own. Like we were by ourselves.
Yeah. You're like kind of pioneering this new venture.
Well, and it's funny because the units happened after that and it ended up being all civilians. So, we also had our counterparts, law enforcement guys. Like we would have like retired DEA agents and retired FBI agents who would work there with us and kind of like help us out.
Super cool.
So we get to the point we deploy with 3-man teams. So it's a captain, an E7 and an E6, or in our cases, 2 E6s because we ran out of E7s.
Yeah.
So we are breaking up the areas that we're going to, and I end up going, "Hey, I want to go back to the same area. Like I've been there before. I know that area."
So y'all are pretty much identifying these things and then you're getting somebody to set them off.
Right. Yeah. So like basically we were building fake bombs, so like, in Iraq, they're called IEDs, improvised explosive devices. Right. So for anybody that doesn't know what that means, they would basically either use homemade explosives, meaning that they would make like a pipe bomb, like, the Unabomber and junk.
Yeah.
Or they would take artillery shells or things that they could find, because in Iraq there was an abundance of it, because there was huge weapons depots that were never cleared. So these Iraqis could just go to these weapons depots and find all this stuff and store it away.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to figure out, right? So they would figure out different ways to make bombs out of this stuff.
Yeah.
We would recreate that. So like we would use foam and, whatever. They'd hide it in trash piles, or like one of my favorite ones to build is we built a fake rock and we used spray foam to do it. So like we built a bomb inside of this thing and then spray foam the outside to look like a rock and hit it like on the side of a road. So it just looked like a rock. So like these people are driving on these little courses that we set up for them at Fort Campbell. All of a sudden, explosion goes off and we react and like we grade it.
You've got to admire the creativity
You do.
with it when it comes to it, like obviously doesn't result in positive stuff.
No, I mean, seriously, like I watched a guy one time climb up a light pole with a, one of those, what are the like glass or whatever things that go on the light poles.
Yeah.
You know what it's, or what is it? Porcelain, the little porcelain pieces that go on light poles. Guy put it in his mouth, shimmied up a light pole with no string or nothing, replaced this little porcelain thing, and then climbed back down.
The I guess ingenuity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like you think about it, it's like a third world country or whatever, like all these mud huts and whatever, but like some really smart people there.
Yeah. That's insane, man.
Yeah.
So when y'all got deployed, you said you was 3-man crews.
Yeah.
Where did you go for this one?
So I went back to the same area.
Okay.
So I requested it on purpose. I was like, if anybody's going to know this area, it's me. So
Hell yeah.
I was with the 101st. So when we got relieved by 10th Mountain Division out of New York. So when I went back, that's who we relieved.
Okay.
So it was actually really interesting going back and talking to the guys that relieved us, and kind of seeing like how things had advanced and what they did to kind of take over the areas that we knew needed to happen, but didn't have the bodies for. So, and they had pretty much pacified the entire region because they had all the bodies to do it.
Oh,
they had 5 times the manpower that we had. Like I think a battalion's like 800 or 900 people.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
Well, it's funny. It's like it validated me because like that's what we would always say. Like we don't have enough people.
Yeah.
Like we know what to do. Like we're not idiots.
Need help.
We need help. We need bodies because we cannot stop the insurgents from coming down here and doing what they're doing if we can't see it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have deterrence, they're just going to walk around because they look like everybody else.
Yeah.
It's hard to fight an insurgent army if you don't have the manpower to prevent their ease of movement.
Of course.
So it was validation, really. It was really nice to go back and see it. Okay, I'm not stupid.
Yeah. So basically you got that validation, but then you're there leading a new charge.
Right. And
doing something new.
And this one's completely different. So I'm not an infantry guy this time around. I'm working in an office with the intelligence guys. So that's where they put us because honestly, that's the best place for us. So they kind of said, all right, well, you guys know about bombs. Now we're going to put you with the intel shop. And your job now is to work with the weapons intelligence teams, which are a bunch of like super like crazy talented like MPs and like CID guys that would go out and like, inspect bomb sites after the case and find little remnants and put it all together and all this stuff. And so we would take all of that information. We would take the information from the intelligence shop. We would put it all into this crazy map system that I'm not kidding you was taught to me by a rocket scientist, by the way.
That's pretty cool experience.
This map system was so in depth that they had to hire a civilian rocket scientist to teach
cover
me
it.
this thing.
Hey, we need that really high paid smart guy.
It's crazy. So our job was to basically put together all of this information and then send it out to units to try to find bomb makers. So like we're past like the deterrence. We're not going to set up checkpoints all the time. Like we want to find the guys that are making the bombs because there aren't that many of them.
Yeah.
And they all had signatures. Like we would give them names, like certain guys would twist wire this way and certain would twist this way and they like each of them kind of had their unique thing. And so that's what the CID guys were looking for is like, do we have any twists in wires? Do we have this, whatever? And then they put it all together. It was our job to kind of put it all together and make those packets.
Dude, I never would have thought. It's almost how they like, serial killer when they have like their thing they do. They're like, oh, he's got this name, and that's who we're tracking. Is in a similar way. You got this bomb guy. You don't know who he is, what he looks like, but he's got his mark.
Yeah.
That's powerful. All right. We're talking about the bomb signatures, the rocket scientist training you up, doing the maps.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. From there.
All right. So basically our job, take all this information that these crazy smart people are doing. Me as the infantry guy, like, okay, how do we attack this scenario, right?
Yeah.
How do we figure out in all of this madness where one dude is?
Yeah.
So when you look at it from an infantry perspective and you're looking at this long road and you're like, okay, well, these little small villages are built up around this road. Like, let's start there, right? Let's start sending some patrols out there, just random patrols. Let's start looking in the village. Let's see where the military age men are.
Yeah.
Like who has any electrical background? Like what do these people do for a living? Like, let's just go there and be there. Let's meet people, then have them report back. let's narrow it down some. You know, if there's a village of 20 houses and there's 3 guys there and none of them have any electrical experience and whatever, then that's probably not it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we figure all this out. We get it narrowed down. Then we send out a kill team. So on each of our, in each of our 3-man teams, we would have a sniper, right? Somebody who had been sniper trained in the Army, and we would send them out with somebody in the units that were in that area, and we would have them try to find the bomb makers. Like that was kind of our entire deal.
Yeah.
And so our job was to try to neutralize bomb makers. Like I said, because there just aren't that many of them. You neutralize bomb makers, now you're not getting blown up every time you drive in.
Yeah. There's got to be a new bomb maker. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like, and it's not reported, but when I went over the first time, it was a daily occurrence. I'm not talking weekly. I mean, literally every day you were getting hit by an IED, you were getting mortared, or you were getting shot. Damn. Every single day. And it was better when we went back the second time, but it was still very prevalent, and the IEDs had gotten worse. Yeah. So at this point, when we first went over, it was just mortar cells. When we went back over again, the predominant IEDs was called an EFP, which is basically a copper plate that they would put inside of a bomb. And when they fired it, the copper plate would turn inverted and turn into molten copper and melt through your IED, your Humvee. So most of the dudes that were getting hurt at this point were all losing limbs or dying. So it was really, really bad. And they got the ID from an RPG. That's how an RPG works. Mm-hmm. It's this little small piece of copper that comes through, shoots out the front of it, goes through your armor, right?
Yeah.
That's where they got the idea. And it was bad. And there wasn't anything you could do about it. There was no amount of armor that could stop it.
That is insane.
Yeah. So, and they would figure out, like, we had all these deterrent devices, you know, like we had electronical systems that would block theirs. We would put little poles on the front of our vehicles to help hit tripwires, you know, like, so, and then like, okay, you got a pole on the front. We'll just turn the IED at an angle so that when you hit it, we make sure it hits your cab.
Good God.
You know, like it was wild. Like everything that we did to try to deter it, they would come up with something to try to counteract and go against and make sure it hit us.
Good God.
It was a never ending battle on our part.
Yeah, daily, man. I mean, like you said, it just evolved.
Yes.
And you're like wondering where are these guys testing this stuff at?
Right. They were testing it on us, and that's exactly what would happen is they would try it. It would work. Okay, cool.
True. If it didn't, they'll just figure it. Yeah. Make another
exactly.
one.
So you missed. Okay, cool. We'll do it again, you know, next week. Yeah.
So it was just like an ongoing battle.
Yeah. We were the guinea pigs, and the guinea pigs were trying to figure out how the scientists kept beating us.
Damn. Was this 2007?
Yeah, this would have been 2007.
Okay. How long were you there?
So I only made it like 2.5 months before I got injured. So I was supposed to be working a desk job, and my wife, if you ever ask her this story, will immediately get pissed.
You were supposed to be,
yeah, she'll say it every time. So I'm supposed to be working a desk job. I'm not supposed to be going out. I wasn't the sniper in our team.
Yeah.
So I was the team lead. The other E6 was the sniper. So they come into the intelligence shop one day. I don't know who they are, some random people, and they're like, "Hey, we've got a mission." So you remember I told you our guys got kidnapped and murdered, right?
Yeah.
So the unit that relieved us had the exact same thing happen. Only I think they had 4 guys that got taken. I think 2 of which were never found. I think they have been found recently, or maybe, I don't know, but at the time they hadn't been. So they came in, they said there's some intelligence. It tells us that we may think we may have some idea of where they are. Yeah. The remains, I mean. So they're like, who wants to go? And like before anybody could say anything, I stood up. I was like, I'm going.
Yeah.
I remember my captain kind of looked at me. He's like, are you sure? And I was like, oh yeah. Like you're not stopping me from going on this mission, right?
Yeah.
So we go out on the mission. We fly out in a helicopter. We land out there. So we had intelligence. They told us where to look, you know, through all of the different intel things. It was like, hey, look over here for this reason, look over here for this reason. So we're walking around in this mostly deserty area, and we're just kind of looking around and stuff. It was me, my captain, a chaplain, and then a security detail that was kind of surrounding us. And there was also a civilian there who I later became really good friends with, who had a cadaver dog.
Okay.
So this guy's an amazing human, by the way. Lives up in Philadelphia. He's the head of his EMS services. He is a SWAT medic for the Philadelphia FBI. Like, had a cadaver dog.
Gotta get him down on the show.
Dude, if he was living here, I promise you I would.
Hell
like,
yeah, man.
He's amazing. His wife is like a pediatric neurosurgeon. One of his daughters is a surgeon.
Super cool.
Yeah,
hell
crazy,
yeah.
right? So anyway, so this guy's there too. He's running his dog, right? So like I'm searching through holes and doing all the infantry stuff because that's what I'm supposed to do. We go down to the first site to look to see if the remains are there. Turns out it wasn't, that they were just burning bricks. So we're coming back up the walkway. I say walkway. Now, mind you, we're in a desert area. So imagine all sand, and you have an area that has kind of been driven on.
Yeah.
So that's what we're walking on. Well, the infantry guy in me said, I belong up front. Normally, that's not how that works. Normally, if you are a VIP, or if you're not part of the security detail, you stay in the middle.
Yeah.
You have security in the front, security in the back, right? No. I walk up to the front on the right-hand side because to me, that's where I belong. So I'm walking along. I'm looking. All of a sudden, everything goes dark. Stepped right on an IED. So it was a pressure plate IED, and it was homemade explosives. It wasn't like the mortar cells that I talked about. So I found out later that it was 5 to 10 pounds of homemade explosives on a pressure plate IED.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I guess comparatively, not to interrupt, would you say that's like best case for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So if it had been a mortar shell, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah. Did you step directly on it? Yeah.
Directly on it. So pressure plate works by that exact measure. So the way it works is you've got two plates, some kind of metal, some kind of buffer. The buffer is what tells you what the bomb is designed for. So the heavier the buffer, the bigger the thing you're trying to blow up. So that's why if I stepped on a tank mine, it's not going to go off because it has a big buffer in it. It's designed for something heavy.
Yeah.
So this was designed for a human being. It had something soft. So when I stepped on it, the two metal plates connected, the bomb goes off.
God.
Yeah.
Dude.
So.
Yeah, what was that?
Goes black. So I wake up on the ground. I had just out. Like, I mean, I kind of opened my eyes. I'm looking down. So I'm kind of like this on the ground. I can see that this leg is gone, but it's all charred. And I can only see like this portion up to my knee. That's it. That's all I could tell. I couldn't see this arm. Like you could see that it's kind of all.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it. It was like this. The medic was already there. So the medic is on this side, on my left side. There was a warrant officer that was with us. He's on my right side. There was a major that was down here. And I knew that they were treating me, and that's it. I think I'm talking to them. I don't know if I am because nobody would answer me.
Yeah.
I remember asking them like, hey, can you put a helmet under my leg? Because it felt like somebody was giving me a hamstring stretch just because of the way that my leg was sitting.
Yeah.
So I remember the major grabbed a helmet, stuck it under my leg. I remember the medic telling the major to put a tourniquet on my leg. And I remember the major looking really confused. And I remember thinking, why is this major really confused about putting on a tourniquet? This guy's been in the Army for a long time. He should know how to put on a tourniquet.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the chaplain that was there was taking pictures. I've seen the picture of me laying there, and I now realize why he looked so confused on what he was supposed to do with the tourniquet. So my leg was still there, but there was nothing but bone from about 3/4 of my thigh down.
That's the only thing holding it.
That it was just bone. There was no meat on it at all. Right. So, and this was all mangled. Like it literally looks like somebody had blew up a turkey. So the guy's looking at him like, what exactly am I supposed to put a tourniquet on?
Doing this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't bleeding. Like everything had been cauterized because it was all burnt.
Dude.
So this arm was like this.
I guess it's probably good, right? Yeah.
Oh, if it hadn't been, I'd be dead.
Yeah, of course. It bled out.
Yeah, I'd bled out completely because this arm was completely mangled. All the stuff that you see with skin graft was gone. It was under my vest and I couldn't see it at all. And I kept asking him like, what's going on with my left arm? Because I couldn't see it. I could feel my hand in the sand. I could feel it just like this, but I couldn't see it. And so I remember asking him like, what's going on? And he would never answer me. So there was another guy that was hurt and I could kind of see that there was something going on over there, but I didn't know what it was. So it turns out he kind of got hit with something. Mm-hmm. I always joke that he got hit by my foot because my foot wasn't on the leg anymore.
Yeah. Just took off and hit him.
Yeah. So that's always been my joke is that the foot went over and hit him and hurt his arm.
I mean, it's so funny.
Military humor.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, for sure.
So this guy's kind of, and it was funny because if I could have laughed, I probably would have, because I saw him go into the helicopter and he was walking, and they had cut his pants. So all you could see was his butt cheek as he was walking through the sand going to the helicopter. And I remember thinking, like, that's funny, but I couldn't physically laugh.
Here you are blown up, and you're like, dude, that's hilarious. That dude's butt cheeks.
Like, I mean, you know, like I was in shock, so I couldn't laugh, but I remember thinking that's funny. So the other thing, I remember watching the guy from the helicopter come over. They bring the gurney. They throw me on the little gurney. They put me on the helicopter. So at this point, they're strapping me into the helicopter, and we're starting to fly off, and I'm like starting to fall asleep, because I remember at one point while I was laying there, I was like, hey, you guys got something to give me? Like, stuff kind of hurts.
Yeah.
And so I don't know whether they did or didn't, but I remember when I was on the helicopter, I thought that like maybe they'd given me some morphine or something, and I was falling asleep.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out I died on the helicopter.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, like going back and reading the medical records, I died on the helicopter, but I just kind of fell asleep, right? So that's all I remember is falling asleep. I remember waking up when we got to the hospital. They put me on one of those little John Deere gators, like they pulled out the gurney.
Mm-hmm.
They put me on the back of the gator, and then I fell asleep, and I don't remember anything again until Germany. So turns out that I died again, and then I died again in the hospital. So I died 3 total times.
Triple death?
Yeah, like from the helicopter to the hospital that I was in initially. So I went to the hospital in Baghdad. They stabilized me there. Then they flew me up north to Balad, stabilized me again, then flew me to Germany, because like all of the wounded soldiers who were coming out, or wounded military people, they stop in Germany if they need to be stabilized before they go on to further higher levels of care. And that's the only reason I still have my hand, because if you see the pictures, the ulnar nerve was still attached. So in Germany, they said, well, we think he could possibly get some function out of it. We're going to leave it for a higher level of care. Like I remember reading the medical records, and that's exactly what they wrote.
Thank God they did.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So that was wild.
Dude, what an insane dang. And yeah, it's crazy how vividly you remember all that, considering.
I remember all of it. And like, I even remember about 10 seconds of the conversation with my wife while I was in Germany. Now it turns out we talked for like a half hour.
Really?
But I only remember about 10 seconds. And oh, by the way, my wife is pregnant at this point.
Oh my God.
So
you just found that out during?
No. She had been pregnant.
Oh.
And so like we were still talking about names. You know, this is in November. I think he was supposed to be due like the middle of December. Right.
Damn.
And so like we're talking about names, and like we still hadn't even decided, because I mean, I'm in a desk job, right?
She's like, we're about to have another baby. Can you not, like, did you have to blow up? Yeah, it's just nuts, dude.
So she's pregnant this whole time, and she's trying to figure out, how am I going to get to him? Right. So she's trying to come to Germany, and everybody's like, no. Like he's way too unstable for you to go to Germany. Like you just need to meet him at Walter Reed. So she goes to her OB, and she's like, by the way, you're going to take this baby out of me. Like if it is safe, he's coming out. I'm getting to my husband.
Yeah.
So the doctor says, okay, fine. Like you're close enough. Like you're high risk because she had hypertension or something like that.
Yeah.
And so they were like, we'll go ahead and do it anyway. Like everything's going to be safe. We'll induce the labor. So I get hurt on the 17th of November. I get to Walter Reed on the 23rd of November. My son is born on the 24th of November. Hadn't even picked out a name yet.
Oh, God. Dude, what the hell?
Yeah. So I'm in the ICU. One of the nurses calls with her cell phone so that I can talk to my wife, and we can pick out a name for my kid from the ICU room at Walter Reed.
Wow. Dude, I get chill. I've got chills from that.
Yeah.
What a insane chain of events. They're reflecting on it, man. Did you have any moment? I am curious, like when you were like after you got blown up in that time frame, like being put in the helicopter on, did you have any kind of maybe spiritual vision, or did your family cross your mind? Were you just thinking about them? It was just
survival. Like
it was just survival, huh?
Yeah. I was in such deep shock. Like when I was laying on the ground, that thoughts outside of that moment didn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't even don't die. It was what's going on.
Yeah.
Like my brain was only able to kind of process one singular thing at a time, you know, and initially it was the guy thing. Like, is my man stuff there? Right. And then beyond that, it's like, what's going on? What's up with my arm? What's up with my leg? Like, oh, I'm going to sleep, you know? And then I woke up briefly, like I said, in Germany to have a talk. And I was just kind of like, I think I remember asking her, like, you know what happened, right? Like,
I left my desk.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I remember about the conversation.
My foot hit this other guy.
Well, at that point, I didn't know that. I found that out later.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, and then I remember waking up on the airplane to Walter Reed. And I remember telling the nurse, like, I feel like I need to go to the bathroom because they had put like a bag, they put a bag in there and inflate it to keep you from going to the bathroom or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so they put me back to sleep. And then I remember waking up at Walter Reed. And then the ICU portion of it was really kind of a blur. Like they had me on so many meds. And like I was only coherently awake for so long because they were taking me in for surgeries like every other day.
Yeah.
At least every other day. And they did that for 2 months.
I remember when I was ICU, they had me hooked up to Dilaudid
Yes.
IV, and I was just like, yeah.
So I had a Dilaudid drip, and then I had an
Shit's
epidural.
strong.
I had an epidural, and then I had a nerve block in my shoulder.
God.
And both of those had pumps too. And then I had morphine as needed. So like I was barely coherent most of the time. And then, like I said, I was going in for surgery every other day.
Yeah.
So they could go in and do debridements, or they could do like some high level surgery or whatever. And so I was always out of it from the drugs from surgery. And so I was never really with it when I was in the ICU, and I was there for like 2 months.
I'm curious, were you the only one that got blown up?
Well, there was the one other guy, but he wasn't. So it was funny. He only had the one spot on his arm, and he ended up getting out because he couldn't function his hand properly, but he was at the hospital for a year longer than me because he kept getting infections.
Damn.
Like, I mean, it was one right after the other. Like, he'd get ready for surgery, have an infection, put it off. Get ready for surgery, have an infection, put it off.
Yeah.
And I mean, it happened for like a year.
Yeah.
And then finally, once he got past all the infections, he was okay.
Oh, damn, man. In a way, I know it's like weird. I don't know how you think of it, but you essentially swapped that spot with somebody else.
Yes. And that's exactly how I think about it. Like, and honestly, I look at it in a positive light because maybe they wouldn't have handled it as well, or maybe they had been standing a half a foot to the left. Because if I had been standing a half a foot to the left, I might not be here. Because if it had blown up directly under me, I'd have probably had a lot more internal damage than I ended up having.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing that you recognize it that way. I mean, it's finding that golden nugget, right? You save someone else's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I don't do it a lot with things where I give myself credit or I look at it positively like that. But when it comes to that, I do. Now, the subsequent feelings.
I'm so glad you do, by the way.
The subsequent feelings of being an amputee and all of the things are much harder to deal with.
From my perspective, it's like, well, one, you saved someone's life, but also it led to you being home for your son's birth.
Yeah. Well, and see, I didn't even get to see it. So she had him at Fort Campbell.
Oh.
And I was at Walter Reed. So I didn't get to see him till he was 10 days old because he had fluid on his lungs.
Oh.
And even then, I didn't even get to hold him because I had MRSA. So I couldn't even hold him. My wife wouldn't let me. She's a nurse. And so she was like, no. And so what she would do is we had it's funny, we were just talking about this the other day. We had a paper box, like the box that printer paper comes in.
Yeah.
We had a box, and she would put it on the bed, and she would put pillows and blankets in it, and she would put our son in the box. And that was as close as I could get to him until I got rid of the MRSA.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, at least you were closer to home.
Yeah.
You were stateside.
Yeah.
For the time that he was born. It's just crazy how that all lined up so specifically, man.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like telling people that story, like I don't get too, like, oh, this is a crazy story, but like that is a crazy story.
Yeah, you tell it so well. I got to tell you, like your storytelling of all this is like excellent.
A lot of practice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hell, you sure this is your first podcast? Yeah. I feel like I beat Sean Ryan to a recording or something.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I do want to ask though too. So you talked about that stuff after that moment though, and everything following. How did that reshape how you saw yourself?
It changed everything. So when you're, 26, 27? When you're 26, 27, unless you have some kind of body dysmorphia or, maybe you had some kind of history of your thoughts as an infantry guy, 26 or 27-year-old guy, you're invincible.
Yeah.
There's nothing I couldn't do. And at the time, I actually wanted to go special forces. Like that was my goal in life. Mm-hmm. So when I deployed for my office job, so the captain and the other E6 I was with were both runners, and that was kind of my weak area. So I was like, okay, I want to get really good at running. I want to get my cardio up, and I want to get strong. There was a gym there right outside the little office. I'm getting ready. I'm going to SFAS. I'm going to go to selection. I'm going to be special forces, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I was going for it. Like I was going to be the top 1%. And then I wasn't, you know? And so now I'm trying to figure out like what happens? How do you survive this way? Yeah. And it's funny. I'm not a hero guy. Like I'm not a look up to people guy. You know, how I was raised. I didn't have a lot of those types of things, right?
Yeah.
Never learned it. And I still don't remember the guy's name, but there was a colonel from the Air Force that came into my room. It was the first time that I ever had any hope that there would be some kind of normal. The guy was an amputee.
Yeah.
So, and he walked in. I don't even think he had a cane. Walked in there and was just talking to me. And he was like, hey, I'm still in. Like, I can fly airplanes with this leg because it locks. He was like, I figured this out, right? Like, I've figured out how to live my life the way that I want to live it.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I was kind of like, okay, like there's something on the other end of this.
Yeah, that willpower.
Yeah, and it made therapy worth it all of a sudden. Like I was going to therapy every day for 2 hours. You know, I'd go to physical therapy, then occupational therapy, and I did that every day, 5 days a week for a year.
So much of your identity was in your physical prowess, you know, capability.
You know how it is when you're in the military? It's everything.
Yeah.
That is what you are.
Yeah. And then, you know, with my rec, I mean, that was hard for me after too, though, is because I did put a lot of myself into my physical capability.
Right.
So when that's like pulled away from you, you know, I still have some limitations, you know, no comparison, right? But at the end of the day, like you still like, that's a tough place to be when you are a physical person.
Yeah. And it's just taken away from you like that.
Yeah.
You know, like immediately in that instant, you're no longer the same guy that you were.
Yeah.
Now
so that mental rebuild.
Yeah. So now you have to learn, like, what is confidence now? What does that mean? Like, how do I now have confidence in doing anything from this point going forward? Like, I can't even walk. Yeah. You know, like I'm in a wheelchair looking up at everybody. I've got rods sticking out of my arm. You know, I'm stuck to these bags. Like I'm going to therapy and all I can do is sit on this ball. You know, like I don't even have a leg. Like I had no prosthetic. So like this is November, I get hurt. I didn't even get my first prosthetic until June because I had stuff in my leg it's like bone growth. It's called heterotrophic ossification.
Yeah. So
it's basically a calcium deposit that happens from blunt force. And so it grew all around the bottom of my residual limb and it was growing out of my skin. And so I couldn't get a prosthetic. And we didn't know that until it was time to get a prosthetic. So here I am, I'm all excited. I'm going to get my leg. And then they're like, nah, man, like you need to have another surgery, get this stuff taken out. So I broke. Yeah. I went back to my room. I bawled to my wife. I was like, we got to go home. Like we got to go on leave. We need to get away from here. Like I need to reset.
Yeah.
So we went home for like a month. And I remember like learning at home that like, yeah, there's things I can do because I wasn't surrounded by doctors. I wasn't surrounded by therapists. I wasn't, and this is going to sound really bad, but I wasn't surrounded by a bunch of blown up dudes.
No. I mean, it doesn't sound bad.
You know, like when you're surrounded by that and you're always seeing it and like every person in the therapy there is struggling and, you know, and it's not good.
It's so much. It's like, you know, it's like you walk in, you can feel the energy of a room, right?
Yeah.
It's just a lot of heavy emotion and energy, and you're constantly engulfed by it.
Yes. And every person there is struggling, all of them. So we're living in a Fisher house, which is like a Ronald McDonald house, right? So imagine like a bunch of rooms with a common area.
Yeah.
So they have 2 of those at Walter Reed, and that's where we lived. So we're living in the Fisher house. And so like every family in there, because everybody that lived there had to have a family, it's the caregivers and the person that's blown up, and all of them are struggling to varying degrees, and you're living with them. So you're watching them struggle and you're watching them learn how to use a wheelchair or use crutches or whatever. There's one guy that's foot was so shattered that he fought it. Like we stayed friends with him for a while. He fought it for like 7 years trying to keep his foot because he just didn't want to lose it. And then finally was like, you know what? I can't take the pain anymore. And finally amputated it.
Damn.
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
Trying to hold on. Damn it, man. That's what would you say? I'd imagine going home for that little amount of time was like a freaking insane breath of fresh air.
It was. And like I said, it was that second time of trying to figure out like, okay, I can do things. Like I remember going home for the first time and we didn't have a ramp yet. So I had 2 stairs going up into the house and I had never hopped since I had gotten hurt. But I'm like, well, how am I going to get up there? So I hopped. And at the time, I couldn't flex my knee all the way.
Yeah.
Well, I remember hopping up there and I broke some scar tissue loose and I fell down to the ground and I was like, oh crap. What did I just do?
Did I mess something up? Shit.
Yeah. So like I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I start kicking my leg out and I'm like, oh, I fixed it.
Yeah. The mobility's improved.
My therapist wasn't super thrilled when I came back and told him about it, but it's fine. But it let me know that like, you're not fragile.
Yeah.
You know, because you've been injured and you know that like, that's one of the hardest things. I see it all the time now being physical therapy, right? Your patients always feel fragile. You know, it's always like, oh, I can't do that. I'm going to re-injure myself.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And so like when you've been through all of this and you haven't done anything, to do something like that normal and fall down like that and just be like, okay.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And you have the testimony too. I think that's a superpower you have, like working with your patients, is you're able to be like, hey, this is my experience.
Yeah.
You've got this. You got that breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
You got to break away for a little bit.
It made everything else after that a little easier.
Okay.
You know, like it gave me the drive to kind of go, okay, well, I can go out and live in the normal world like this.
So what would you say is more difficult, the physical loss or the emotional reckoning you faced?
Initially, it was the physical because I just hadn't dealt with the emotional portion. But for all of the years since then, the emotional portion of it, the coming to terms with interactions with people. You know, we talked before about being an overthinker, you know, so when you're in a condition like this and you meet somebody, you always wonder, like, are they nice to me because I'm disabled, or are they nice to me because I'm a nice dude?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, do they want to hang out with me because I got a cool story, or is it something that I'm adding to their life?
Well, if it makes you feel any better, like I think you're a genuinely good person. Like I'd like to hang out with you. Well,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Just throwing that out there.
But those are the mental struggles, right?
Of course.
And so then when you get into all of that, and then you're all like, how do I do the things that everybody else does? And then are they giving me credit because I'm good at it? Or are they giving me credit because I'm good at it as an amputee? You know, so I trained jujitsu. I've trained jujitsu as an amputee.
Nice.
For 8 years. Right. I trained at Guardian MMA in Lebanon.
Sweet.
Right.
Man.
I'm a purple belt now. Like,
hell yeah.
And like for the longest time, like you wonder, like, are people giving you credit because you're an amputee, or are you really good at this?
Yeah. Are they taking it easy on me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and so like when you're first starting, you know, you're like, oh, this guy's taking it easy on me because I'm an amputee. And like, I would tell people, hey, don't take it easy.
Challenge me.
And they would say, no, we do this with white belts. Like, it has nothing to do with you being an amputee. And so for when I've done it for years, and I tell my wife this, like, those guys, when they tell me I'm good at something, I take the credit.
Yeah.
Those guys train with me.
Yeah.
You know, like, we've shared the blood, the sweat, the tears, and they've seen how hard I work.
That's so cool.
To do the things that I'm doing. And so when they say, hey man, that was good, I'm like, okay, yeah.
You trust it.
Yeah. Whereas like if my wife came and watched me and she's like, oh babe, good job. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, like, you just see an amputee doing it. Right. Like, so that's the mental struggle for me, you know, is, did I earn it? Because that matters to me.
Do you look at the prosthetic and stuff? Do you look at it as like a limitation or a driver?
Sometimes both. But generally, if I've ever seen it as a limitation, I try to turn it into a driver. Like, how can I figure out a way to do the thing that I'm trying to do despite it?
Like excel at jujitsu.
Yeah. Like excel at jujitsu, or go to the gym 5 days a week.
Yeah. You
know, and not like, you know, and it's funny, like I made a purposeful decision when I was looking for a gym because I'd gotten out of it for a while. I used to work out at the house. I got all the gym equipment I needed. You know, I've got the Smith machine, all the dumbbells, the stuff. And I did it at home because I didn't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like I remember, so you remember the National Training Center I told you about? I went back out there, you know, years later because a buddy of mine was stationed there and he was having a retirement party.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was working out heavy then, and I was like, oh, I got to go hit the gym on post. So I go hit the gym. I'm doing burpees. I'm doing all the stuff. And I remember stopping and looking, and there's like 5 dudes in their Army PTs sitting down on the benches, and they're just staring at me.
Yeah.
Like, who's this amputee dude down here just like blowing this workout out, right? Like this dude's down here doing like 100 burpees, and like we're just over here doing bench press.
You're a burpee guy?
Oh, I love them.
That's my favorite thing.
Yeah. So I don't do them as much anymore just because of my shoulders, but like I loved them at the time. And like, I was
Uh.
trying to lose some weight. Like I'd gotten up to like 250 pounds. I'd really let myself go. And so I was like, I'm done with this. I'll never let it happen again. So for like 2.5 years, I had a trainer. We did the whole deal. Like I worked my tail off. I quit doing it when I tore my ACL. I tore my ACL in jiu-jitsu. We were doing takedowns, had a new guy in there. He went to do a hip throw, but he went knee to knee, snapped my ACL, right?
Damn. Yeah,
Now,
that happens.
Yeah, and here I am, an amputee dude, like with one ACL, and now it's torn.
You're like, damn it, man.
Yeah, so like you can imagine, like I remember walking into the therapist and like I'm like, what do you do with this? That guy ended up becoming my friend, which helped me out later, right? Like in my chosen profession.
Yeah.
Because he was so impressed by how hard I worked with one leg to get back from my ACL injury.
For sure.
Right? So taking all of those limitations and just going, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. How do I do these things? So when I chose this gym, I chose a gym in, it's like the Old Hickory area. It's called Iron Fit. Small place, like bunch of muscle headed dudes.
I know some guys that go there. I met the owner. Yeah.
Yeah. Atlanta goes there. Right.
Yep.
So, and I'm like, a buddy of mine, Greg, who's a really big fit guy, goes there. And I'm like, I don't want to go to Planet Fitness. Like, I don't want to go where all the normal people go. Like, I want to go somewhere where people are going to push me.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So I go to Iron Fit. I'm like trying to work out on my own. I keep seeing these people on the Stairmaster behind me. They're doing all this. And I'm like, I wonder if I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how my brain works.
Hell yeah,
and
dude.
So like I'm on the Stairmaster every day for 30 minutes, you know, like after my workout.
Willing to challenge yourself.
Right.
Always.
So I get on the Stairmaster and I'm like, okay, this is getting a little easy. Like, let's go sideways. Let's go backwards.
Yeah.
You know, like let's turn this thing into something that like will challenge me and make me feel like I've earned.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever I'm going to get out of this.
Without limbs or not, you know, or with, I think that's how we should always look at life. Yeah. Like, hey, what is going to be challenging? What can I, that's how you step up. That's how you constantly putting yourself into a place of discomfort is only going to help you grow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like now you're faced with what you've been through. And it just levels it up that much more, you know, and I admire the hell out of that.
When we talked earlier, you know, about parenting, right? And we talked about like doing it as a 20-year-old versus as a 44-year-old.
Yep.
And the thing that I've learned as you've gotten older, which you probably have excelled at because you had a kid later in life, you know yourself, is that like, how do we set an example?
Mm-hmm.
How do we parent the way that we want our kid to be and not just the way that we were parented?
Yes.
So when I was younger, I parented a lot like I was parented, which wasn't great. And so now when I'm doing things all the time, like my youngest son, the 17-year-old, because he's out of school right now in dead period, he comes to the gym with me. Like we got him a summer pass to Iron Fit. So he comes in the mornings with me and works out.
Good
so I'm
stuff.
like, how do I push him?
Yeah.
You know, he's a better athlete than me. Kid plays football, he plays baseball, like beats me in all of the pushes. So I'm like, you know, how do I motivate him? And it's just by being there and working out.
Just doing it.
Just doing that thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so like most of the things that I'm doing are in that vein. Like it's, how do I be better tomorrow than I am today?
That's just something I was going to ask. Like what does, because you had said to me when you sent me that message, like, you know, getting better every day. That's your thing. Like, what does that look like to you?
That it just in anything. It doesn't matter if it is like maybe today I had a really bad emotional today. So I got to process that.
Yeah.
Don't hide from it. You know, like don't just push it off till tomorrow. Don't be in the same bad mood later today. Yes. Talk about it. Find anybody, you know, your wife, your friend, some patient, you know, like I remember I had an older patient and she was really struggling and we were talking one day and like, she just literally stood up and just gave me a hug and I cried. You know, I mean, it's how do I get better quicker? You know, because for the longest time I would sit in my anger or my depression and it would last days, you know, or like whatever, or I just wouldn't come out of it at all. My wife would ask me all the time, like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I wasn't processing anything.
Damn.
Nothing at all.
And you realize it's probably related a lot to, you know, the childhood stuff.
Yeah. And so, and it's funny because I didn't know any of this. I was never an emotional guy. Growing up, I made no emotional connections. I didn't feel emotions. Through the military, you don't learn. It's actually worse.
Yeah.
So when I first got out of the military, I became a tattoo artist because I had a friend who did it. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I can have, you know, flexible hours, whatever. I'm pretty artistic, whatever.
Yeah.
it wasn't great for me emotionally. I've made really bad decisions, and it almost cost me my entire marriage, my family, all of it. Right. So like I move on from that, and it was in that process that all of this happened. So her and I go to counseling together, and I decided, like, if she's going to forgive me, like if she's going to move past the mistakes that I made, I must be worth something.
And you maybe started to forgive yourself or work towards that.
Yeah. That's where that started. That's where that, like, okay, if I'm worth something, that means that I can be more.
Dude, hell yeah.
You know? And so that's where that started, was like, okay, if I'm here now, 10 years from now, I'm going to be way past this.
Yeah.
Like, and I started thinking emotionally, like I really started taking ownership of the things that I was feeling. And it was bad for a couple of years.
Really?
Like going from completely emotionless to having emotions and feeling them and being vulnerable.
Yeah. What was that like?
Oh, it was awful.
Really?
Like I would mix up emotions, and like, it was just, I had no idea what I was feeling, trying to process a certain emotion and trying to talk to her about it. And she still hadn't forgiven me for the things that I did, you know, like it was really, really bad, and it got confusing.
And what was your kids' like experience with that too?
They were okay. I think that we did a pretty good job of insulating, and we did really good of parenting together and not allowing it to really affect the family unit itself. We really worked hard at communication in that period, even though she was emotionally shut off. Like, she allowed, to the best of her ability, for me to communicate with her.
Yeah.
And I tried to do the same.
Yeah.
You know, I was emotionally desperate in that time, which is two opposite ends of the spectrum. So we were constantly having to figure it out, but we have a really good marriage counselor who is now my personal counselor.
Oh, sweet.
And I'm open to anything. Like,
yeah.
I talk to all kinds of people. I love emotional conversations. And I actually find that it's difficult at times for me to be friends with guys because they don't want to have those conversations.
Surface level.
Always. It's what do I know? What am I good at? And that's what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's always the same kinds of conversations about the same kinds of information. And it's boring.
So boring.
And so it's difficult for me at times to kind of maintain those relationships, because I'm like, what are we doing here?
All my real relationships are deep.
Yes.
Yes. We're able to dive past it. And I don't knock people if they don't want to go past surface level. That's fine. But we're probably not going to be like friends.
Yeah.
You know, we need that. I think all men need that too. They need to evolve past that surface level thing. But I think that's a comfort thing too.
Well, but when I was younger, I could do it in silence. You know, like I have a friend I've been friends with since I was 15, and we can sit in the same room and not speak for 3 hours because that's the way we always were.
Yeah.
But that's not nearly as gratifying to me now as it was when I was 25.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like
now you want to share it.
Yeah, but he's, 3 years older than me. He's still single. You know, he's all the things. Like, what do we talk about?
Yeah.
You know,
eventually you just kind of like you go in different directions.
Yeah.
You know, either one person's moving forward, or some people, a lot of times you realize, I think, like a lot of that emotional evolution is a lifetime pursuit, right?
Yes.
Like, to me, like, authenticity is the highest level you can operate at, but authenticity is a lifelong journey. You know, you got to be willing to constantly rip off the masks and grow. And that's, like, for me, is like my life pursuit is just to be the most authentic I can. But I know I'm going to be doing it till the day I die.
Yeah.
And, but in order to do that, you're going to have to grow and evolve. And you realize, like, you know, some people in your life, well, they're still there. Right. And you just kind of grow in a different direction. And you're not knocking them, but it just naturally happens.
Yeah.
You know?
The first time I really started to understand that, there's a book. I actually listened to it on an audio book while I was driving around doing home health physical therapy. It's called The Courage to Be Disliked.
Okay.
Great book. So there's a philosopher named Alfred Adler, and the guy, he's the opposite of Freud in the way that he teaches. His kind of entire philosophy is the past is only going to affect you if you allow it to affect you. And so he works a lot on interpersonal relationships and worrying about your tasks only. And then if you're trying to micromanage me, then you're trying to take my ability to do my tasks away, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot about self-ownership.
Yeah.
You know, emotionally and everything else. And so I listened to his book, and it's actually really cool the way he wrote the book. It's basically a philosopher is in his home, and this young kid, you know, a young adult comes in, and he's really angry about life and all the things. And he comes in and the philosopher's teaching the kid through examples about Adler's teachings. Like that's kind of the way the book is written. So in an audiobook, it comes across really cool because you get two voices.
Oh yeah.
Right?
You're going to have to remind me afterward.
Yeah. So really cool. And like listening to that, it was like, wait a minute, there's something to that. Right.
Yeah.
And he says it in there too, that like, if you want to learn these methods and you want to be good at your emotions and life or whatever, it takes forever. Yeah. Like it's not quick. Like it's a lifelong pursuit to kind of do these things. And that really was like, okay, I'm not really a failure.
Yeah.
You know, like I got a long time to kind of figure this thing out as long as I do something every day.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, you're only a failure if you quit.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing. You just keep on going. And that's everything in life. You just keep moving forward no matter what.
I said that to a patient today, actually. She's been struggling a lot. And today she was like, no, I don't want to do that. You know, I asked her to get up and walk. And she was like, no, I don't want to get up and walk today. And so when we were finished, she said, I'm sorry if you're angry with me. And I said, no, I'm not angry with you. I said, I'm disappointed because you didn't even try. You know, I was like, you know, I'm always going to be proud of you if you at least give it an attempt.
I'd rather someone be angry at me than disappointed for not trying. Yeah.
And that's kind of my philosophy. And that's kind of the way that I want to be, is I would much rather try it and fail
100%
than to not do it at all. Because there were times when I was younger where I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't give it the shot and I didn't put the effort into it that I probably should have. And I look back on it and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
You know, other than failure, what were you afraid of? And that's it. I was afraid of failure.
Isn't it cool though, to look at yourself now versus that kid?
Yeah.
And you can recognize that growth.
Yeah. It actually, it's that validation, you know, that we all kind of look about when we talk about like the self-validation, which is actually more important, but it's also the hardest.
Oh, truly.
That's self-validation, like looking at myself and saying, okay, yeah, you have grown, you have progressed, you have matured.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard, but it happens and it's gratifying when it does.
Yeah. I mean, it falls in line with me. I've struggled with just self-value.
Yeah.
You know, but we talked about the childhood stuff and how much that controls us for so much of our life. And we don't even realize it. Because I did a whole series of several weeks ago talking about, I just decided to share this part of my life where I was taken advantage of as a kid.
Yeah.
And I didn't get super specific into details, but I opened up about that. Like, this is something I faced. I want to share this because I recently did some work that took me back to that kid, me, and I sat next to him. Yeah. And I got the opportunity to walk him back through life. And I realized, though, how many things that little boy inside of me still controlled.
Yeah.
Why I would get so angry. Why I had to protect myself against people because, like, I got to say the last word now. All these different things. But why I maybe haven't pursued certain opportunities with my business because I'm afraid of getting rejected. Right. I don't see the value in myself that others do, you know, but it all stems from that moment, you know, and when you get forward in life and you get to this place of like, holy shit, there's been so much control. I've been programmed by that.
Right.
And then when you realize it, though, that's where the real work begins, because then now you recognize it. Now you can actually work on all those things and you know where the source is.
Yeah.
Isn't it powerful stuff?
So much.
Yeah.
And it's funny. That's one of the tools my therapist uses me a lot of times, talking to your younger self.
Yeah.
That's what he says. He says, literally speak to it out loud.
The inner child work is like life-changing.
Yeah. He says, talk to it like you're talking to your kid.
Yeah.
You know, and then it works for me. You know, in my truck all the time, I will do it all the time. I'll talk to my younger self like I'm its father and tell it, like, it's okay, man. Like, we're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we're here.
I'll have to try that out.
He swears by it. And for me, it works. Like, now you have to be in that emotionally vulnerable place. It's not going to work if you just do it. But if you're in that emotionally vulnerable place where you've made it past the anger and the frustration, and like, you're to that point where like, you've kind of figured out what it is and you're about ready to cry. Yeah. That's the part. That's where it gets me. Oh, and normally, like, I'll have a nice, good cry with that one and just kind of like let it out and tell myself like, hey, Chris, it's okay. Like, it's okay.
Man, thank you for that. I sometimes I wonder what those conversations look like for you.
That's exactly what it looks like. Like, the other day I was telling myself, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I'd literally said, Chris, like, you're good, bud. Like, we're not there anymore. Like, you're safe. Like, you're an adult now. Like, you've made a place for you that's safe. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, dude, it's
like, I don't know if you can see the little tears right now.
Oh no, like, I can feel it. I can feel it. This is it definitely resonates with me because you know, when I did this thing called Evox treatment, and it's like uses voice mapping and stuff.
Okay,
it's
yeah.
powerful. My friend Hannah has a place here in Franklin. She's running me through some sessions, and I was able to go back with this. It plays like frequencies and stuff. She guides it beautifully. But man, she talked about like, okay, we were circling on some different subjects, and she's like, all right, go to a place where you felt stripped of your self-value and worth. And I just immediately went to that.
Yeah.
And she's like, and I kind of voiced it, and she said, now sit next to that little boy leaving that house. And so, dude, I was like, it was so vivid. I sat next to little me, man.
Yeah.
And she was like, now show him pictures of his beautiful daughter and his wife. And bro, I just started like, I'm trying not to lose it right now because it's such an emotion. That was such an emotionally impactful moment.
Yeah.
Because I was able to just like sit there with him and be like, dude, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And that's like, I just burst out into tears because that's all I could think was, it's going to be okay. Look what you get to do with your life. Look at your family. It's a beautiful thing, man. You know, and that's some powerful stuff. So you talking about that, man, brought me right back there. So thank you. Dude, that's the kind of work people need to be doing, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Just something every day, right?
Just something every day.
And you know what's funny? The very first time that I ever heard that, so I'm not a YouTube guy, I'm not a rah-rah guy, but I remember there was it was a general, like a Navy SEAL general or something. He was doing a speech, like a commencement ceremony. I think it was at Annapolis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about that in the, he was talking about do something every day or whatever. I'm trying to remember the exact thing, but he basically said, wake up in the morning and make your bed.
Yeah.
That was the name of the video. It was called Make Your Bed. And he was like, you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you make your bed. Now you did something productive today.
Yeah.
You start out every day that way, and your day will become more productive because you started out with something productive.
Hell yeah.
And so that's where it started for me. Like, and I still do it today. Like
Yeah.
I get up every morning, and even if my wife is asleep, I'll pull the covers over to my side just to kind of make the bed. And like, that's the very first productive thing I do all day long. And I have found that it ultimately makes me more productive every day. Like even days when I don't have anything to do, it makes me want to be productive because I already did something.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Like I was like, no way that worked.
I do want to say, you know, now in the midst of all this, how would you say fatherhood has both healed or challenged you, or both, you know what I'm saying, the combination of both?
Fatherhood is literally the driving force for me wanting to be better every day.
Mm.
It is also the most frustrating thing I've ever done some days. Like my oldest is eternally frustrating because he and I don't see eye to eye on things. He wants to be his own independent person, but he also plays the I'm a kid card.
Yeah.
You know, he's a normal 22-year-old kid, but on top of that, he has to learn everything the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, so he's been in trouble with the law. Like he's lived a very tough existence. Some of it self-inflicted, some of it wasn't. And so it forced me to think and to grow, because if I'm doing something and it's not working and he's acting this way emotionally towards me, then he's not receiving what I'm doing. I need to learn.
Yeah.
I need to change. And so you remember I told you that like my childhood didn't affect me a lot when I was a kid, but it did as an adult. And that was why.
Yeah.
So it made me think, and I was in therapy and I was talking to my therapist and I'm like, well, if I'm trying this hard to be a better dad and a better husband, why didn't they? What was it about them or me that made them have no desire to be better? Like even now, you know, like I told my stepdad about, and my mom both, about how I felt. My stepdad hasn't hardly talked to me since. Doesn't even come over. Doesn't go to the 4th of July anymore. Like has basically cut me out because he just refused to be better. And that to me is a failure. Like I'm a father and I would never do that to my kids because my job as a father is to continue to be a good father in whatever capacity they need me.
Yeah.
You know, and when they're 2, they need me in this way.
Yeah.
When they're 14, they need me in this way. When they're 22 and 32 and 42, they need me, and they need me to learn and to change and to adapt.
Yeah.
And to learn how to be the father that they need me to be.
Regardless of what stage of life they're in.
Right. Not the father I think they need.
Unconditional love.
Correct.
That is the key.
If you love them hard enough, and that's what my wife says all the time, if you love them hard enough, you're always going to do the right thing.
If you just love them unconditionally, they're going to trust you. And I don't know. I think that's just like, that's going to open the door eventually for them to come to you with whatever it is that they need.
Yeah. If you don't trust them, they can't trust you.
Yeah.
And I think parents forget that like they're supposed to trust us just because they're my kid. Like my kids told me before, like you have to earn trust.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't just tell me what to do all the time and never respect my feelings or what I want to do and expect me to like just trust you for it.
Dude, that's my whole thing with my daughter. I'm building a relationship based off trust, not fear.
Yeah.
I want her to be able to trust me with anything she experiences.
Right.
You know, and I think you talked about why with your parents and like why things were like that with them, but then, well, they're just a reflection of their past.
Right. And they were just unwilling to change it. And I've talked about this to my kid, my oldest one specifically, that like, hey, when you were little, I wasn't what you needed me to be.
You know, what I love about your story and like, you know, made me think on his too, is that like, man, people take what they have for granted.
Yeah.
So bad. You know, it's like we all have these capable bodies and we're all able to do some, you know, move and just like use it for something.
Right.
And dudes I know that like lost them to extreme circumstances are doing more than they ever expected.
Right.
But I think that's twofold, right? We've also been conditioned to get comfortable like our society has, and you can't really knock people for it. But also like I may not be lifting as much weight as I used to because nerve damage and, you know, muscle loss and shit, but I'm doing more than I ever did.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you almost lose it or you almost lose your life in general, man, it could spark a fire that makes you like, no, I'm going to set the bar so freaking high or I'm going to die trying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I love it, man.
Yeah. Always move the bar up.
Always.
Right. Because if you're not doing anything. You're not getting better for the next day. You're not doing anything to get better. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you're crushing it, man. I just got to say I'm proud of you, dude.
Thank you.
I know you don't want me doing all that.
No, I appreciate it.
Can you walk me through probably your lowest point and what pulled you out of that?
So two, probably. The one was the one where I told you when I was supposed to get my prosthetic and couldn't.
Yeah.
So that was probably my lowest point after the injury because everything up to that point had kind of been a progression. You know, everything was up. You know, it was, you're in ICU, now you're in a regular hospital room.
Yeah.
You're in a regular hospital room, now you're out of the hospital room. You've gone from a power chair to a wheelchair, like you're on crutches, like it's up. And then all of a sudden it was crashed. You know, like the rug's pulled out, like it's over, right?
Yeah.
So that was my first low point in all of it. And then the second low point was at the end of tattooing, whenever I messed around, made bad decisions and almost lost my wife. Like that was awful because it forced me to look in the mirror in a way that I had never looked in the mirror before.
Yeah.
You know, so whereas the injury took what I was and changed it, I had to change this.
Yeah.
And so really it was actually harder because it was me having to look in the mirror, face my mistakes, and figure out, one, why did you do it? Two, how do you never do that again?
Yeah.
And that was way harder.
I think that's one of the biggest steps people can take is just looking in the mirror.
And I didn't want to up until that point, but I was like I told you, if she can forgive me, then I have to be worth something. So when I look in the mirror, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
You know, and I'd never thought about it like that before. Like, what is it that's looking back at me? Is that what I want to be?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't.
I said this before. It's almost like, you know, when you're in a bathroom and it steams up and it gets fogged up.
Yeah.
And you'll wipe and you'll see yourself for a second and then it fogs back up. When all you need to do is just open the door, let it steam out. And,
and it's funny. I'd never done that before at all. Like the mirror was just always fogged over and I never even cared. You know, like it was just do whatever, live however, like you can figure it out as you go along. And it's funny. I talked about my kid being a knucklehead. That's kind of the way he lives. You know, and it's really, and I think that's why it gets under my skin so much because I know what it feels like to live that way.
Yeah.
And I know what it's going to feel like when he finally has those eyes open.
Yeah.
And I want to protect him from it.
Yeah.
You know,
but you're going to be there for him regardless.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a hard thing for me as a father is like wanting to protect my daughter from everything.
Yeah.
But then that's not going to do her any good.
No, it's not. I'm a helicopter dad. Like I know that I am.
I know.
And I don't want to be.
Yeah.
But I also know that I've lived life the same way he has, and I don't want him to feel what I felt.
Yeah. You got to create that balance between like, hovering in space,
Yeah.
right? Like not too much space, but like also not right on top of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you experience some hard shit, it's hard not to want to be right over the top,
Yeah.
because you just know life's put you through the ringer. You've seen it, and you just like don't want your kid to face some of those realities.
Right. And
so it's completely understandable.
Yeah. And how do you feel like, okay, I'm being a good dad by letting him go through the pain that you knew was coming? Like you saw it coming, like, and then you have to let him do it. But in reality, that is being the good parent.
Yeah.
Like let him experience the pain and then let him figure out what it's like to get through it. Damn, man. And that's the lesson that I've been learning recently.
Oh yeah.
Like let him experience the pain, let him hurt.
Yeah.
Because really, ultimately, then you're going to see if what I taught him comes through. Because what I've always taught him is when you mess up, correct it.
Yeah.
Don't do it again. Come out on the other side better than you were before, because that's what a man's supposed to do.
Yeah. It's teaching them that, they got to learn the consequences of their actions. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. What do what's one thing you think has been hard to express to your family what's something you want to express to your family that you maybe think's been hard for you to say, like put into words?
So it's funny that you said that, because when I told my kid, so the oldest one was on the couch earlier, and he said, "Where are you going again?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to do a podcast today. I'm going to go, talk about my experience and my trauma and whatever." And he's like, "Really? You don't even talk about that to us?" And so truthfully, like, that's something I want to say to them, is that like, that I'm sorry. That I'm sorry for not trusting them to understand who I was, because I think that I was afraid of talking to them about certain things and them having a distorted view of me. And so like, I didn't trust them enough to be that vulnerable and that open and kind of talk to them about the things that I've experienced and the things that I've been through, because I think we as veterans often do that as a defense mechanism. It's like, how do I talk to you about that? You won't get it. Yeah. But really it's just because we don't trust them enough. We're afraid that they're going to see us differently.
Yeah. We like almost isolate ourselves.
Yeah.
And then, being better on top of being men, like we just, the condition, right? Bottling things in.
Yeah. I'm going to hold all of this here because I don't want you to hurt, because I tell you, or I let you experience what I'm experiencing.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you expect them to trust you if you can't trust them?
Right.
Yeah. Damn, dude. That's a powerful reflection. I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Honestly, because that's I don't know. It's not easy to share.
It's not.
But you admit it, and hey, thank you for doing that, man. And they'll appreciate that.
Thank you.
So what are your wars you're fighting today?
Just being a better man.
Yeah.
Being open and honest and vulnerable and true to what I want to be.
Yeah.
Like I try not to have a vision for what I want to be. I just know that I don't want to be the same tomorrow as I am today.
That's a good start, man.
Yeah. So like, I try not to set, this unrealistic, idol of myself up and say like, I want to be this perfect dad or this perfect husband or this perfect guy. I just know that as long as I keep getting better, I'm going to ultimately end up where I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
Because I feel like if I set this unrealistic thing and try to be perfect, that's unattainable. Like nobody is perfect.
Yeah.
But if I just keep trying to be better and keep correcting mistakes and keep trying to make the people around me happier and keep myself happy, then everything is going to be okay.
Moving forward with righteous action.
Yeah.
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 That's the pursuit right there, man.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's going to just make things fall into place how they should.
Yeah, I agree.
As it all does. What does purpose look like to you? Or are you still kind of defining that?
It's different. My purpose as a father is to make sure that I raise men that can look in the mirror and be proud of themselves. My purpose as a husband is to make sure that I am always true and honest and loving and that I take care of her. And by that, I don't mean just provide for her.
Yeah.
Like when we're young, that's as men, that's what we do. We're providers, right?
Yeah.
And we neglect all of the other stuff. Well, that's not the case. Like my job is to make sure that I listen to her, like I hear her and I understand her, and that I make sure that she understands me.
Yeah.
Because if she doesn't, then we can't be happy together. Yeah. So beyond that, my purpose is to make sure, and this is the one that I struggle with the most, is to make sure that I take care of me.
Yeah.
Because I often neglect me and don't allow for time for me or things for me or healing time for me.
Same problem.
Yeah.
My wife we talked about this on the episode we just did. She's like, I need you to take more time for you.
When I have to figure it out, people ask me all the time, like, what makes you happy? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
like I grew up the way I grew up. Like I didn't have things. We didn't do things. Like I never learned what made me happy. I just learned what I needed to do to get through the day.
Yeah.
And I did that all the way through my young adult life, all the way up to the point where I kind of was like reawakened to try to be emotional and feel things. And now I have to figure out like, crap, what makes me happy?
Yeah.
Like what do I do for me to reset?
Yeah.
And it's all these different things over the years. It's this, it's the gym, it's jujitsu, it's, tattooing, it's whatever, whatever the thing is.
And it's funny you say that though, because like I do these similar things, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, I work out, or like I love working, so I do that. And it's always like, yeah, but for you. And I'm like, that's for me, right? But yeah, it's hard for me to like really define what that reset is.
Yeah. And it's funny, you think it'd be a really easy question to answer. And I'm 44 years old. What makes you happy? And you're like blank. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah. Time with my family. And they're like, yeah, but for you. And I'm like, oh God.
Right. Like, oh, like watch my kid play baseball. And they're like, no, for you. And I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe we can help each other figure this out.
There you go.
What would pre-deployment Chris, the one before, he knows he's got a baby coming, all that shit. What would he think of Chris today? Or what would you tell, and then what would you tell him if you could share anything with him?
I don't know what he would think of me. I don't remember thinking much of people. I would like to think that he would at least respect me.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I would be able to earn his respect. Because most people in his life didn't.
Yeah.
They always fell short. He always had a problem with males because they just never met his expectations.
Yeah.
I would tell him to give himself a break. Like don't beat yourself up so badly that you're afraid of everything.
Yeah.
Like I was always in my head about everything. You're going to fail. You're going to you're going to be embarrassed. You're going to whatever. And it wasn't worth it. And it made me miss out on so many opportunities that could have changed my life, maybe for the better, maybe for worse, who knows?
Yeah.
But it was opportunities nonetheless. And so I've tried now to kind of look at, don't say no to experiences.
Yeah.
Because experiences are exactly what does what we're doing now. It gives me something to talk about. It gives me a lesson. It gives me some ability to empathize with a new person.
Yeah.
To share an experience with somebody, maybe with my kids, maybe with a friend, maybe somebody else later on is hurting. And maybe the only bond that we have is an experience that I had because I didn't say no.
Yeah.
And so I've really tried hard to kind of do that. I do with my wife a lot. Like I try not to ever tell her no, because she's our kind of planner. She's always let's go do this, let's go do that. And I'm like, you know what, cool, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time I'd say no, especially after I got hurt. No, I don't want to do that. Like I'll walk too long, my back will hurt or my leg will hurt or whatever. And I don't do that anymore. Like, sure, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Screw it.
We'll work it out later.
Worst case, my back does hurt, but there's something beautiful there in it.
Right.
It was totally worth it.
And if my back hurts, it means I need to go to the gym more. Right. There's a solution to the problems instead of an excuse.
Yeah, man. And I think too often people make excuses, man, but we're here for this experience, man. And we're here, I believe, to maximize it in every way.
I agree.
Not get comfortable and stay boxed in.
Yeah.
I truly believe like we get this beautiful opportunity to maximize. And too many people sell themselves short.
I agree.
Is there anything that you want to bring up that we haven't touched on, or is there something that you haven't had the space to talk about that you want to share as well?
No, I mean, I think that we've pretty much kind of hit all of the things. I mean, I do wish that more people would be more open and more vulnerable and more open to discussing the way that they feel, because maybe we wouldn't feel the way that we feel then.
Yeah.
You know, I really do wish that more people would be like, you know, how you doing?
Yeah.
How you feeling? I do it at the gym every morning.
Yeah.
Every morning I go up to the people that I kind of know there and I'll check on them. How you doing? You okay?
Just be kind.
Yeah. What's with the face? You
Yeah.
know, like let's smile a little bit, and they'll do it back. Like I had a really shitty morning this morning, and a couple of the girls that go to the gym there, like that I talk to, and I'll come by, give them fist bump, I'll check on them. They came by and they're like, "You good?
Good.
Like we're not doing that today. Like let's go. Let's
Yeah,
smile.
get it together, sir."
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're usually carrying that energy, man.
Yeah. And there's like 4 or 5 people, and we're always there in the mornings, and we always eye contact. Like, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah, for sure, man.
And it's not normal, and
Yeah.
people think it's weird, and they don't want to do that, and I'm not okay with that.
It makes them uncomfortable, man.
Yeah. So like that would be something that I wish that more people would talk about.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna keep doing it on here.
Good.
And like, I think, you know, I'd be honored to have you on again one of these days. Like maybe, hey, hit me with some stuff you really want to dive into, and I think we just focus on it, man. I mean, we talked a lot about your military background. I think it was really well said, and honestly, like everything that came after with that, I mean, it's powerful stuff. But I would love to have another conversation with you, you know, to share with the world, because I love where your mind's at, man. And you know, you've been through some stuff people never recover from at the end of the day. And to see where your perspective and how much you've grown internally, like, and I kind of got to see that blossom as you told me the whole journey, and we got towards this last half of it. I'm like, dude, I'm blown away. I'm like, bro, that's such a cool thing, man. And I think that can move some people, because that's the thing, that vulnerability, that connection, that stuff you're talking about, you wish people would share that. Like, that's what people don't realize, man. You can have more connection with your supposed greatest enemy than your closest friend.
Right.
Based off of one conversation, because you and I we have similar, you know, things that we face, but also very different experiences.
Right.
But everybody in the world, we're all on our own unique journey.
Yeah.
But somewhere between me and this dude way over there, we connect on something.
Right.
And if you can figure out what that is, you can have this completely different level of understanding with somebody else. And man, I don't know, man. I think through conversation and just like that right dialogue and the willingness to do so, that's how you make some change, man.
Yeah.
Because you bring people together. You know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, we may have different values and beliefs, but there's so much more in there which you can connect on somebody.
Yeah.
And like, dude, you fucking make some big moves. You know, they can't stop us, dude.
That's right.
We're here to disrupt.
That's right.
There's no debate here, man. We're connected. Hey, anyways, I'm going to get too amped up, dude. I'm going to break something. I cannot afford to break any of this shit. This is a question I ask everybody. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Chris, what is your relentless pursuit?
My relentless pursuit is to be better every day, be better tomorrow than I am today, all the way till the day that I die.
Dude, that's what it's all about. Constant improvement, man. Well, I'm proud of you, man. And I have no doubt you'll keep making that happen. I have no doubts that you're going to impact so many people just by them hearing this story, man. Truly. I'm excited to see what's ahead for you. If you ever need anything from me, dude, you got my support, bro.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you, man.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. Take care.